Chapter 46. Siyu turned around and saw Uncle Guo standing behind him with a straight face. Siyu stood casually by the door like a cool breeze. He thought to himself, when did I poke my head out to look around? I was just wondering if I could go in. However, Siyu did not say anything to the obviously unhappy Uncle Guo. He pointed inside and asked, "Can I go in?" Uncle Guo frowned. Before he could say anything, Siyu said, "I won't spoil your flowers." Uncle Guo scrutinized him for a while before he nodded reluctantly and emphasized, "You're not allowed to touch my flowers." Siyu promised again and again. He was just short of swearing before he finally stepped into the flower shed with Uncle Guo's permission. When Siyu walked into the flower shed, he saw Wenwen playing with toys quietly in an area surrounded by the flower shed. Siyu had an impression of this scene. He remembered that the first video was shot in this area. Siyu walked over and saw Wenwen playing with building blocks. This time, he was building a wooden house. Wenwen looked up and was very happy to see Siyu. "Uncle Yu." Wenwen saw Siyu and stopped playing with the building blocks. He walked over. "Are you building a house? Shall I accompany you?" Siyu thought to himself. This was a parent-child interaction. Even if it was childish, he was fine with it. Wenwen tilted his head. Actually, he had stopped playing with these toys a long time ago. He had played with them many times, but he was bored and wanted to wait for his mother to come out before he could play with them again. Was Uncle Yu so childish? Not only did he like to watch cartoons, but he also liked to play with these children's toys. Could it be that Uncle Yu had a hard time when he was young? He didn't have any toys to play with and cartoons to watch, so he wanted to make up for it when he grew up. Did he want to regain his childhood? Wenwen looked at Siyu sympathetically. Not everyone was as lucky as him to have a second chance. "Siyu? ? What kind of look was that?" Wenwen patted the long legs in front of her and comforted her. "Okay, I'll play with you." Then, he pulled Siyu's pants and walked into his little world of fun. Siyu walked in, sat down cross-legged, and started playing with building blocks with Wenwen. Uncle Guo was originally observing his precious orchid. When he saw the interaction between Siyu and Wenwen, he couldn't help but frown. It was true that Wenwen was loved by everyone, just like his students. Which one of them didn't love him as half a son? However, none of them gave him a strange feeling like Siyu. It was as if he was trying to make up for something. His gaze unconsciously became scrutinizing. Siyu seemed to sense Uncle Guo's gaze. He looked up and gave Uncle Guo a friendly smile. Then, he lowered his head and continued to help Wenwen build the house. Uncle Guo sneered, looked away, and continued to take care of his orchid. If Fu Yun came out of the live broadcast, she would see such a warm and friendly scene. She thought about it and didn't want to disturb them. Instead, she went to Uncle Guo's side and helped him take care of the orchid. Wenwen and Siyu worked together and finally built the wooden house. He clapped his hands happily and felt a sense of accomplishment. He turned to look at Siyu. "Uncle Yu." Siyu responded and praised, "Wenwen, you're awesome." Wenwen was so happy that he squinted his eyes and praised, "Uncle Yu, you're awesome too." Wenwen wanted to share it with his mother. His gaze shifted and he saw Fu Yun standing beside Uncle Guo. She was carefully tending to a blooming orchid in front of her, and Uncle Guo was guiding her from the side. Wenwen was about to shout when he suddenly stopped. He covered his mouth and rolled his black eyes. He didn't want to disturb his mother while she was working. Siyu also noticed that Fu Yun had come out of the live broadcast. He couldn't help but turn to look at the room in the flower shed. Fu Yun was doing the live broadcast inside. This meant that all the flowers she raised during the live broadcast were inside. Siyu became restless and wanted to take a look personally. He wanted to take a look at not only Little 11, but also the other orchids. However, he didn't get the owner's permission, so he could only suppress his thoughts for the time being. When Wen saw that Fu Yun was done with her work, he ran over and pounced on Fu Yun. "Mom!" Fu Yunhua answered and turned around. "Did you have fun?" Wen nodded. Then, he pulled Fu Yun's hand and walked forward. "The house is ready. Look!" Fu Yun looked over and praised, Wen is really amazing. You built the house so beautifully. And Uncle Yu?" Wen said happily. Yes. Uncle Yu is also amazing," Fu Yun said casually. Her smiling eyes inadvertently looked over and happened to meet a pair of deep and charming eyes. Siyu stood casually. His posture was straight and his aura was extraordinary. There was a smile on his handsome face. Fu Yun was stunned. Suddenly, her cheeks were a little hot. She pursed her lips and smiled at Siyu. Then, she naturally looked away. Siyu walked over and asked familiarly, "Can I go into the room over there to take a look?" Fu Yun didn't hesitate and nodded in agreement. There was nothing that couldn't be seen in her live broadcast greenhouse. Usually, she didn't let Wen in because she didn't want him to suddenly barge into the live broadcast room. Now that the live broadcast had been turned off, he could naturally enter and leave. Fu Yun held Wen's hand and led Siyu to the greenhouse. There weren't only orchids in the greenhouse, but also live broadcast equipment. Siyu naturally recognized it. Fu Yun noticed that he glanced at it and explained, "I usually do a live broadcast of growing flowers on the platform." She saw that Siyu only nodded and didn't ask further. Fu Yun heaved a sigh of relief. She believed that Siyu had heard about her identity being exposed previously. However, in front of a superstar who had more than 10 times more fans than her, she was embarrassed to introduce herself. Thinking about it, Siyu thought that she was just a small-time live streamer, so she skipped the topic. However, she never thought that a superstar would be one of her fans in the live broadcast room. Seeing that Siyu walked in front of the orchids and sized them up seriously, she said, "These are the orchids that I grow." Although she also grew orchids outside, she only used the orchids in the greenhouse for her live broadcast. The first one that Siyu saw was his 11th, the Golden Emperor Bronze Sparrow. Although this species wasn't special among the orchids and was relatively common, it was the species that he had personally raised. In his heart, this was the most important species. His 11th was already budding and would fully bloom in a few days. Siyu didn't expect that he would be lucky enough to see his orchids bloom this year. Siyu thought to himself that he was probably the first person in the live broadcast room to see these orchids with his own eyes. Thinking of this, he was extremely happy. No one else had such an honor like him. This uniqueness made him forget himself for a moment. Siyu saw the watering device at the side and picked it up. "Do you need me to water them?" "I can help." "Don't." Fu Yun thought about how he and Wen were both killers in growing flowers. Her first reaction was to refuse. "No need." Siyu looked over with a puzzled expression. Fu Yun walked over and took the watering device, and placed it in a corner far away. Then, she smiled and explained to Siyu, "I've already watered them all. If I water them again, I'll overdo it." Fu Yun thought to herself that Mr. Yu's physique was so special. What if the flowers and plants he watered died? She didn't dare to take the risk. These were all her painstaking efforts. If any of them were gone, she would cry to death. "All right." Siyu looked at the orchids regretfully. He couldn't water his son himself. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. He didn't know if he would have the chance tomorrow. Wen was looking at the big lotus petal orchid with eyes full of amazement and love. He didn't know when he would be able to grow such beautiful flowers like his mother. Siyu and Wen had been lazing around in the greenhouse. It was unknown when they got together to look at the flowers together. They could even squat in front of a pot of flowers and whisper for a long time. Fu Yun wanted to do something, but she didn't feel at ease leaving the two of them in her greenhouse. She was afraid that they would ruin her flowers if she made a mistake. Fortunately, it was soon noon. Fu Yun used the excuse of making lunch to take Wen away and let Siyu come out with her. Fu Yun brought the two of them back to the bungalow. She wiped her sweat and felt relieved. After lunch, Wen was sleepy and wanted to take an afternoon nap. After Fu Yun coaxed the child to sleep, she also took a nap. Siyu left the flower garden after lunch. Fu Yun thought that he had thought it through and returned to the village. She didn't expect that Siyu would come back at around 4 in the afternoon. And he was holding bags of things in his hands. Fu Yun. Siyu didn't hide his aura as he carried the bags. He said to Fu Yun, "This is a tent." Fu Yun roared. Was he going to settle down here? Siyu walked around the bungalow. The living room couldn't fit the big tent, so he could only find a place outside. However, other than the ground in front of the door, there was no space to accommodate the tent. Fu Yun had no choice but to help clear an area in front of the bungalow and set up the tent together. Perhaps it was because of Siyu's height and long legs, the tent was similar to a yurt. Siyu could enter by lowering his head slightly. He could even stand up straight inside. The space was very spacious and was about the same size as her small room. Wen was very curious. He took off his shoes and ran into the tent. He walked back and forth and was curious for a long time. Fu Yun also took a few more glances at the tent. It was her first time seeing such a yurt in real life. She didn't know where Siyu got it from. She didn't remember such a tent being sold in the small town. Siyu asked Wen, "Do you want to sleep with me tonight?" Wen hesitated. He was tempted, but then he nodded happily. He had never slept in such a house before. He would sleep with his mother tomorrow. Fu Yun. Forget it. The little boy had grown up. She should prepare a room for Wen. When Uncle Gua came out of the flower garden, he saw the extra things in the empty space of the bungalow. It was obvious that they were going to stay in the flower garden for a long time. His face immediately darkened. Uncle Gua snorted and said in disdain, "Why are you still here?" He looked unhappy and pulled a long face. Siyu's expression was natural. It was obvious that he didn't care. He even chatted nicely with Uncle Gua. Siyu said seriously, "Wen is worried about his mother's safety. He wants to hire me to protect her, so I can only come here." Uncle Gua's place was truly isolated from the rest of the world. He didn't go online and stayed in the flower garden all day long. He didn't interact much with other people and only had eyes for these precious orchids. Therefore, no one told him about the things that happened to Fu Yun on the internet, so he didn't know about it. When he heard Siyu say that he was here to be a bodyguard, his first reaction was to ask, "What happened to Ruoruo?" If nothing happened, why would she need a bodyguard? Siyu briefly told Uncle Gua about the things that happened on the internet. Uncle Gua frowned as he listened. What kind of nonsense was this? How could his student, who he treated like his daughter, be bullied like this? Other people didn't want to give this daughter to him. He wanted her to be part of his household register. After Uncle Gua calmed down, he looked at Siyu and was even more annoyed. "I don't have a place for you to stay here." Siyu said, "It's okay. I've already prepared it." He pointed to the luxurious tent not far away. Uncle Gua was speechless. Uncle Gua scolded, "I've never seen such a shameless rascal like you." Siyu raised his eyebrows. He didn't care at all. Sometimes, one didn't have to be thick-skinned. In the end, Siyu settled down in the flower bed and spent 2 peaceful days there. However, it was noisy outside. The production team had already stopped filming for 3 days. They had to decide if they wanted to continue filming. Although the guests were mainly filming the variety show during this period, they also had other activities. If they didn't continue filming, they would have to leave to catch up with other events. If the production team didn't give them a clear answer, the guests didn't dare to leave. What if they said that they wanted to continue filming the moment they left? The road to get here wasn't easy. Apart from having to transfer many buses, it also took a long time. Wouldn't it be torturous to go back and forth? The guests of the production team temporarily left the villagers' houses and gathered in the house rented by the production team. The staff who originally lived here had to stay in the town's hotel. Because the production team had a conflict with the villagers, they were not treated as well as before. Although they weren't chased out like Feng Shui, they were treated coldly. That kind of feeling didn't feel good, so they decided to return to the production team first. Xan Su was living well at the Mei family's house. He didn't want to squeeze with the guests of the production team, but they had all gone over. Xan Su couldn't leave them, so he could only reluctantly pack his bags and leave. As for Feng Shui, after she was chased out, she was taken away by Chang Zhuyu. However, she didn't go too far. She temporarily stayed in the county's best hotel. Director Peng tried to contact Feng Shui several times, but Chang Zhuyu tyrannically hung up on him before he could say anything. Director Peng wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Were they going to continue filming or not? They should have given a definite answer so that the production team could make a follow-up decision. He should have stood firm and rejected Feng Shui firmly when she wanted to come on the show. He shouldn't have been greedy about Siyu and Feng Shui's conflict. Although the traffic exploded, the production team was also destroyed. Don't ask him how he felt now. If you did, he would regret it very much. The assistant director asked Director Peng, "What did Siyu say?" Siyu's manager said that the show can continue, but Feng Shui can't be involved. Director Peng had a complicated look in his eyes. Judging from how protective Apple Entertainment was, he knew that Siyu had offended Feng Shui from Orange Entertainment and the Chang and Fu families. His manager, Yuan Xan, had come all the way here to help him. A busy man was staying in this remote and desolate place. He didn't care about anything else and only stayed here to keep an eye on Siyu. He was afraid that they would bully Siyu. Would the production team dare to bully a big star like Siyu? They couldn't afford to offend her. The assistant director slapped his thigh. "That's easy. If Feng Shui leaves the show, we can just find another guest." In any case, Feng Shui's image had been damaged. Although the storm was slowly subsiding, there would still be negative news. The assistant director didn't want a celebrity with negative news to appear on the show. Director Peng said faintly, "The problem now is if Feng Shui doesn't say anything." He called her manager but she didn't pick up. He called Feng Shui but she hung up. If they dared to announce that Feng Shui had left the show, wouldn't they offend Feng Shui and the Chang family? The assistant director was speechless. They couldn't afford to offend either side. It was too difficult for them. Siyu didn't care about the crisis the production team was facing. He was enjoying himself in the flower bed. When Yuan Xan came to look for him, Siyu was still unhappy and didn't want to be disturbed by the outside world. Siyu let Yuan Xan in and asked casually, "Why are you here?" Siyu's casual pants were rolled up to his knees and he was holding a ladle in his hand. Yuan Xan watched as he walked over to the wet vegetable field and worked with Wen. When Wen saw Yuan Xan walk over, she shouted happily, Uncle Yuan. Yuan Axayan responded. He lowered his head and looked at the obviously overwatered vegetable field. The vegetables in the field were already wilting. He looked at the father and son who were happily watering the field and wanted to say, "Let these poor vegetables go." Chapter 47. When Yuan Axayan saw the clear water flowing from the soil into the gully, he couldn't help but ask, "Is this enough water?" Wenwen raised his head. Under the delicate straw hat, a pair of sparkling eyes blinked. He said seriously, "The sun is so hot that the vegetables are all wilted. If you water them more, they won't be dried so quickly. Just the right amount. That's enough." Yuan Axayan wiped his sweat. In just a short while, he was already sweating profusely from the sun. "But the vegetables are wilting. Obviously, we haven't watered them enough." Wenwen widened his eyes and looked at Siyu. "Isn't that right, Uncle Yu?" Yuan Axayan was speechless. Didn't it occur to him that the vegetables were wilting because they had been watered too much? Unexpectedly, Siyu nodded in agreement. Yes. After confirming with their eyes, they were father and son. "Is this how you raise flowers?" Yuan Axayan asked. He felt that he understood why they would die if they raised flowers. How is that possible? Wenwen widened his eyes. Orchids are very delicate. They need specific amounts of moisture and nutrients in the soil. It's very difficult to raise them. Siyu added, "I told you to raise flowers when you were free, but you always said that you weren't free. Asking such a naive question doesn't suit your elite temperament." Yuan Axayan was speechless. So he should buy a few books on agriculture so that he could learn the correct way to grow vegetables. When Wenwen saw that he was almost done watering, he shouted for Siyu to stop. Only then did Siyu stop watering. The two of them came out of the vegetable field and rinsed the bucket and ladle clean before washing their feet. Wenwen loved the feeling of cool water washing her bottom. She couldn't help but step on the water. Then, she and Siyu stepped on each other. When Yuan Axayan saw Siyu's childish behavior, he was so shocked that his eyes almost fell out of their sockets. It took him a long time to close his mouth. After having a child, would people become so childish? After Siyu and Wenwen were done playing, they returned to the living room. He noticed that Yuan Axayan was looking at him strangely. Frowning, he asked, "What's with that look?" Yuan Axayan said, "I'm trying to see if you've been possessed. How could this person change so much in just a few days?" Yuan Axayan realized that he couldn't remember Siyu's arrogant attitude. Siyu. Was there something wrong with his manager's brain? Yuan Axayan chatted for a while before he got to the point. He briefly explained the program team's plan to Siyu. Wenwen cupped her chubby little face and listened to them attentively. Perhaps they thought that as a 3 or 4-year-old child, no matter how smart he was, he wouldn't be able to understand the conversation between adults, so they didn't avoid him. Yuan Axayan took out a cattail leaf fan from somewhere and fanned himself. "If it were up to me, I'd rather not film this program." Siyu was a capable actress. She had acting skills, looks, and willfulness. She didn't need to rely on variety shows to solidify her popularity. Yuan Axayan's original intention of letting her take on this variety show was to relieve her boredom. Now that things had come to this, it didn't matter if she quit. Siyu didn't care about this. He didn't say anything about quitting because he wanted to use this as an excuse to stay. Before long, Fu Yun came over. When she saw Yuan Axayan, she greeted him and asked about the program team. Yuan Axayan didn't hide anything, so he roughly explained. When Fu Yun heard this, she worriedly confirmed, "So it's very likely that this program won't be filmed anymore." Fu Yun felt rather guilty. She felt that it was her personal matter that had caused the program to end prematurely. She had caused the other guests on the program team to suffer an undeserved calamity. She wasn't familiar with the other guests, but she had interacted with Xan-su before. She had ruined their program, but Xan-su had never vented his anger on her. Siyuk seemed to sense Fu Yun's guilt, so he said calmly, "This matter has nothing to do with you. After all, you were implicated. On the contrary, it's because of my relationship with you. Apple Entertainment will provide appropriate resources to the guests as compensation." As he spoke, he glanced at Yuan Axian. Yuan Axian agreed, "That's right. No matter what, this matter is related to CU. The company will provide appropriate compensation." When Fu Yun heard this, she felt a little better. She didn't have any resources in the entertainment industry, so she couldn't provide compensation. Now that CU's company had stepped forward, she was very grateful. However, she said, "This has nothing to do with Mr. Yu." CU looked at her and said, "It has nothing to do with you. You don't have to blame yourself. Even without you, this program wouldn't have been filmed." Fu Yun nodded hesitantly. Previously, the program team seemed to have an agreement with the local government to donate. Did this still count? Fu Yun thought to herself. If this charity was gone, how could she secretly donate money? There will be donations too, Siyuk said with certainty. Even if the program team didn't donate, he would still donate. Siyu pondered. He liked the simple and honest people here. Furthermore, they had taken care of Fu Yun and her son a lot. The best way to repay them was to promote the economic development of this area. When Fu Yun heard this, she felt relieved. She calculated the assets in her hands and secretly wondered how much she could donate. Not long after, Siyu excused himself and left. Yuan Axian stayed behind to play with Wen. Fu Yun thought that since they weren't filming the program, Siyu might have to leave soon. Hence, she sent a message to Tian and urged her to hire a female bodyguard as soon as possible. When the bodyguard arrived, Siyu could leave and Wen wouldn't say anything. Yuan Axian looked at the vegetable field outside the house. Even though it had been exposed to the scorching sun for half a day, the soil was still wet. It was obvious that Siyu and Wen had watered it a lot. Fu Yun noticed that he was looking at her. "Brother Yuan, what are you looking at?" Yuan Axian pointed at the field. "They are ruining the vegetable field. Aren't you going to scold them?" Fu Yun nodded and said, "It's okay. As long as they didn't harm the orchid field, they could do whatever they wanted." Siyu enthusiastically wanted to help her water, fertilize, and take care of the plants. Fu Yun rejected him with great difficulty. Later, she had an idea and asked him to help Wen water the vegetables. Fu Yun had actually taught Wen how to water the plants appropriately. However, children had their own logic. He felt that when people were thirsty, they would want to drink a lot of water. It was the same for the vegetables. If he watered them less, they would be dry by noon. Wouldn't he be thirsty in the afternoon? In her opinion, Wen wanted to play with the water. There weren't many places for children to play in. Furthermore, Wen had always been very sensible. Fu Yun couldn't bear to be too harsh on him, so she turned a blind eye. Fu Yun thought that Siyu would stop when he saw Wen. She didn't expect that he would play with Wen and do whatever she asked him to do. Yuan Axian. Behind every naughty child, there was a willful and pampering parent. This sentence was not wrong. Siyu went out for half a day and only came back in the evening. After Siyu came back, Yuan Axian left without asking them to stay for dinner. Fu Yun didn't ask him what he was going to do, but he took the initiative to ask, "When are you going back to the village?" Wen also looked over eagerly. Fu Yun hesitated for a moment. She felt that it was quite good to stay in the garden. However, Siyu and Wenwen both seemed to want to go back to the village. They didn't have anything to do here, so they were bored. Tomorrow. Fu Yun originally wanted to say 2 days later, but when the words reached her mouth, she changed her mind and said tomorrow. Wenwen clapped happily. That's great. He actually missed his underlings a little. Fu Yun couldn't help but laugh when she saw Wenwen so happy. Forget it. Anyway, the sun rose early. If she woke up early, it would only take 10 to 20 minutes to drive the electric scooter. She could rush back and forth. Fu Yun glanced at Siyu and thought that it was not safe to sleep in a tent all day. It was better to sleep in a room. With this decision, Fu Yun brought the adult and child back to the village the next evening. Siyu had already learned how to drive an electric scooter and asked Yuan Axian to push one back from town. The two of them drove the electric scooter back to the village. Fu Yun couldn't help but take a few more glances. When Siyu rode the electric scooter, the visual effect instantly became classy. The electric scooter stopped at the entrance of the courtyard. Wenwen immediately jumped down and ran to the door. Fu Yun went to open the door and then pushed the electric scooter. Wenwen, who couldn't wait to push the door open and run in, suddenly exclaimed. Fu Yun quickly pushed the door open and entered. What's the matter? She looked up and saw something extra under the tree at the side of the courtyard. It's a swing. Wenwen stood not far from the swing and looked at it. Then, he turned around and shouted excitedly to Fu Yun, Mom, it's a swing. Siyu then walked in and asked the mother and son, do you like it? Fu Yun turned around and asked in surprise, it's you. Siyu revealed a faint smile and nodded. I made it myself. Ever since he found out that Wenwen liked to play on the swing, Siyu instructed his subordinates to find the materials to make the swing. He spent almost an entire day making it himself just to give them a surprise. However, due to the conditions, the size of the swing was relatively small. Fu Yun didn't expect Siyu to be so thoughtful. She was really pleasantly surprised. She said gratefully, thank you. Wenwen likes it very much. She looked at Wenwen's cheerful little back view and her eyes were as gentle as water. What about you? Siyu asked. Me? Fu Yun was stunned. Then, she revealed a smile. I like it very much too. Siyu's expression was gentle. It's good that you like it. Wenwen had already run to the swing. He stood on his tiptoes and clung onto the board of the swing. The swing swayed slightly because of Wenwen's clinging movements. His chubby little body was lying on top of the swing. His two short little legs were almost off the ground as he swung them a few times. The swing was too high for Wenwen. He climbed for a long time but still couldn't sit properly. Fu Yun and Siyu parked the car and walked over. Siyu took a step with his long legs and carried Wenwen to sit properly on the swing. Wenwen finally sat properly. He struggled to hold on to the thick rope on both sides of the swing. The length of the swing was a little long for Wenwen. He tried his best to straighten his two hands, but he could only barely touch it. Fu Yun stood not far away and noticed a thick layer of fine sand under the swing. Siyu was very meticulous. He had even predicted that the child would fall from the swing. With this layer of sand as a buffer, there was a high probability that the child would not be hurt. Ruoro, come here. Siyu waved at Fu Yun. Me? Fu Yun walked over with a puzzled expression. Siyu smiled. Sit. Wenwen happily invited her. Mom. Let's play on the swing together. I'll play too. Fu Yun saw Wenwen's little chubby hands holding the thick rope. She could only hold it to one side. She was worried that Wenwen would lose his grip on the swing and fall, so she sat down. She thought that Mr. Yu was very thoughtful. He was worried that it would not be safe for such a young Wen to play on the swing alone. He specially found a longer swing so that the adults could accompany him. Siyu went behind them. Are you ready? Fu Yun held the rope with both hands. One of her hands covered Wen's hand. She asked Wen, are you holding on tight? Wen's other hand grabbed Fu Yun's clothes behind her back and said loudly, hold on tight. Siyu pushed them up. At first, he did not push hard and the angle of the swing was not big. Slowly, the angle of the swing became bigger and bigger. Wen soon laughed out loud. Fu Yun could not help but laugh. She had not played on the swing for many years. It was quite interesting. The two of them played for a while before Fu Yun shouted to stop. She then changed people. Mr. Yu, come sit too. I'll push. No need. Siyu refused. He made this swing for the mother and son to play. He would not play such a childish game. Fu Yun looked at the time. I should go make dinner. She could not continue playing with Wen. Wen had not played enough and was still sitting on the swing. When she heard this, she looked at Siyu. Siyu immediately changed his words. Then I'll play with Wen. Fu Yun saw Siyu sit down and put her long legs on the ground. After the swing swayed, Wen instantly smiled and went back to the kitchen to cook. Because of the addition of the swing, the old house became a new playground for the children. They had never played on a swing before except for seeing it in school. When they saw that Wen's house had an additional playground, they were extremely envious. Did your mother make it for you? A child asked. Wen proudly stuck out her belly. It was made by Uncle Yu. Wow! Yi blinked and suddenly asked in a childish voice, does Uncle Yu want to be your stepfather? I heard from Grandma that you're going to have a stepfather. Will your stepfather beat you, scold you, and not give you food? Zhuang was extremely worried. It was as if he could imagine Wen's miserable days without food. His eyes suddenly moistened and he wanted to cry. Wen. He waved his hand. Of course not. Uncle Yu likes me and specially gave me this gift. Although his mother was perfect in his eyes, Uncle Yu and his mother were not from the same world. How could they be together? It was impossible. When the children saw that Wen was so certain, they nodded as if they understood. Then, they lined up to play on the swing. The children in and out of the village came in the morning and at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. They played until sunset before going home. As there was only one swing, each child could only line up to play. Moreover, there was a limit to the time they could play, so the children were not satisfied and reported on time in the morning and afternoon. Brother, I want to play again tomorrow. Xiao Shan sniffed and said to his brother, Dashin. Got it. Let's go again tomorrow. Okay. Xiao Shan nodded happily. Dashin also brought the children from their village to line up to play on the swing. They went home in groups at sunset. The children chased and played by the roadside. Suddenly, 2 black cars drove slowly on the country road. They approached them, then passed them and continued to drive forward. Dashin and the others saw the cars and stood by the roadside to take a look. The cars seemed to be going to the village. Their village rarely saw cars from outside the village all year round. It was only recently that outsiders came in and out of the village frequently, so they were a little surprised. Not long after the black cars passed, a van stopped not far in front of them. After a while, a few young men carrying machines got out of the van. Are we close? We're almost there. The young men looked around. The car they had been following was nowhere to be seen. Their car could not get any closer. It was too noisy and they could not be found. The navigation system showed that they were only 800 meters away from their destination. They just had to walk there quietly. Pay attention to the camera later. When we get the first-hand information, we'll be rich. This place is really remote, a young man said. He almost could not help but rub his buttocks. After sitting in the car for so long, he felt that his buttocks were not his anymore. Let's hurry. We won't be able to make it in time. The short man was unconsciously excited. When they got the hottest insider news of a rich family, they would definitely become famous in the industry. Xiao Gang had already noticed that a group of village children were looking at them without blinking. Their companions were still using their phones to search for navigation. Xiao Gang thought for a while and walked toward the group of children. He smiled kindly at them. Children, may I ask if Fu Yunruo's house in Shanghe village is this way? Dashin and the others looked at the stranger warily and did not speak. Xiao Gang fumbled in his pocket for a while and took out a lollipop. This lollipop belongs to whoever shows me the way. The children did not speak. They were even more alert. Dashin suddenly carried his brother and shouted to the group of children, "Run!" The group of children turned and ran towards Shanghe village. Dashin ran at the back and looked back at them from time to time. After a while, the group of children disappeared. Xiao Gang was confused. He looked very kind. Why did the children run away in fear? Did the navigation system arrive? Yes, it's here. Shanghe village is just ahead. It did not show the location of Fu Yun's house. We'll ask when we enter the village. The two cars had caused such a big commotion. Many people must have heard it. Let's go. The three young men carried their equipment and rushed forward. On the other side, Dashin and the group of children ran back to Shanghe village. Before they entered the village, Dashin shouted, "Bad people are coming." Chapter 48. The children's shrill voices rang out one after another in the village. The adults who were on their way home from the fields heard the commotion and ran over with their hose. Where are the bad guys? Are they human traffickers? Where are they? Where are they? Regardless of whether they were working inside or outside, they locked the children in their homes, picked up the nearest weapon, and ran out to look for the children who were shouting about the bad guys. Dashin called the adults over and shouted, "There are bad guys who want to catch Sister Ruoruo." Oh no! A middle-aged woman suddenly slapped her thigh. I saw two cars enter the village. I thought they were from the production crew, so I didn't think much of it. The cars were similar to the ones that had passed by the village. They were all black and shiny, so she thought they were going to look for the village chief. Seeing the children shouting about the bad guys, they were worried. They couldn't let their family members be bullied in their own territory, so they hurried to Fu Yunruo's house. The two cars stopped by the roadside. The front door opened first, and a tall man with long legs got out. After closing the door, he walked around the back of the car to open the other side. A woman in a plain dress got out of the car and stood beside the man. She looked up at him and their eyes met, full of affection. "Brother Chang, let's go over." The woman broke the sweet atmosphere. "Okay." The man reached out and held her hand. He promised, "Shuai, don't worry. I won't let you suffer." This couple was Fang Shuai and Chang Zhuyu. They had stayed in the county for a few days, but before they left, Fang Shuai's mother, Fang Wanting, and stepfather, Fu Zonghong, came to visit them. Then, under the request of the two elders, they stepped into the village again. Fang Shui leaned over slightly and said to the quiet car window, "Mom, Uncle, we're here." The car window rolled down, revealing a well-maintained and elegant face of Wen Wan. He resembled Fang Shui a little. Fong Wanting turned her head and said gently to Fu Zonghong, who was frowning, "Let's get out of the car too." Fu Zonghong did not say anything. "We've already taken 99 steps. One more step won't make a difference. Old Fu, there's no overnight feud between father and daughter. Talk it out. Yun Ruo will understand." Fu Zonghong looked irritated. He did not want to make this trip at first, but under the persuasion of Mother Fong and Shui Ruo, he decided to come personally. However, he felt that he had lowered his head in front of Yun Ruo. Since he was here, shouldn't he come out to meet him? After some persuasion, Fu Zonghong got out of the car with a straight face. Fong Shui pointed at a farmhouse in front of them. "My sister used to live there." When Fu Zonghong saw the courtyard, his brows furrowed even more tightly. For the past few years, she would rather live in such a dilapidated house than go home. Fong Wanting looked at her and felt sorry for her. This child, why is she so stubborn? Old Fu, let's take her home. It's up to her. Fu Zonghong said angrily. However, under the persuasion of Fong Wanting, he walked forward unwillingly. Fong Shui hesitated. Chang Zhuyu immediately asked with concern, "Shui, what's wrong?" The two elders who were walking in front of them stopped and turned around to look at them. Fong Shui forced a smile. "Uncle, my sister might not be happy to see me. Why don't I wait here?" Fong Shui did not want to make this trip, but she hoped that her uncle and sister could resolve the misunderstanding as soon as possible, so she came to lead the way. Chang Zhuyu immediately felt sorry for her. "You didn't do anything wrong. Why do you have to avoid her? You're giving her face by coming here." Fong Wanting hesitated for a moment. She looked at Fu Zonghong and said softly, "Old Fu, these two children have been fighting recently. Why don't we let them meet after we resolve the misunderstanding?" Fu Zonghong immediately raised his eyebrows. As an older sister, she's so narrow-minded and doesn't have any tolerance for others. She only knows how to bully her younger sister. What else can I expect from her? Shui Ruo, don't worry. With me around, she won't dare to bully you. Fu Zonghong walked over angrily. "Uncle." Fong Shui anxiously walked forward. Chang Zhuyu quickly held her. "Shui, slow down. Don't fall." However, before Fu Zonghong could open the door, he was stopped by a shout. "Who are you?" Siyu was helping Fu Yun in the kitchen. Wen was circling around Fu Yun. Fu Yun loved to think about food when she had time. With another person in the house, she was in the mood to cook a feast. Wen was a carnivore, and Siyu was no different. Wen was a greedy little kitten. She suddenly pestered Fu Yun to eat braised meat. She was in a rush and didn't manage to buy any meat. How could she make it? She quickly went to Aunt May's house and caught a duck that she had asked Aunt May to help her raise. She slaughtered it and made a braised duck. It was also fragrant. Wen didn't mind at all. After the duck was braised, the aroma overflowed. Wen wasn't in the mood to play. She was eagerly waiting to eat. Siyu was tending to the fire when his phone vibrated. He took it out and glanced at it before putting it aside. Fu Yun noticed and asked, "Mr. Yu, is something the matter?" Siyu said, "Nothing. If Mr. Yu has something to do, you don't have to worry about Wen. He will understand," Fu Yun said. She saw that Siyu's phone had been ringing a few times. If he had something to do, he should go and do it. Wen wouldn't be unreasonable. "It's really nothing. My friend's family has a dog. He is so excited that he keeps sending photos to share. Just ignore him." Fu Yun heard this and said, "Then your friend must love dogs." "Yes. After all, we are all single dogs." We have a lot to talk about. Fu Yun was speechless. She glanced at Siyu and thought to herself, is this a bad friend? Siyu stared at Wen for a long time. When the little guy had enough, he sat on the stool and his little head moved and swayed around with Fu Yun. From his angle, he could see the curve of the baby fat on her little face. Siyu thought for a while and said, speaking of which, I haven't received my payment yet. Wen was speechless. Wen looked over warily and subconsciously covered his face. Siyu raised his eyebrows and said, why? Are you not going to fulfill the agreement? Wen's eyes drifted and then he said self-righteously, you forgot. He didn't forget. At most, he didn't remind him. Wen was prepared to be pinched on his face every day. However, there were no signs of pinching on his face on the first and second day. He was secretly happy and thought that Uncle Yu had forgotten. In the end, he remembered. Let bygones be bygones. Don't bring up old scores. Wen tried to act cute to get away with it. Siyu looked at him and smiled. There is no time limit on the payment in the agreement. I have saved up a few days. It felt good to pinch so much at once. Wen was speechless. He felt his face ache. Come, let me pinch. Siyu gestured for Wen to come over. Wen asked Fu Yun Ruo for help. Mom, Fu Yun Ruo held back her laughter and said seriously, Wen, you have to do what you promised. If you break the agreement, then the agreement is invalid and Uncle Yu doesn't have to be your bodyguard anymore. Wen was speechless. Alright, he couldn't break the agreement. Wen took the initiative to move his face closer and said, go ahead. Wen closed his eyes and his long eyelashes fluttered. He opened his eyes slightly and said, be gentle. Siyu smiled and agreed. He went to wash his hands before sitting at the side and reaching out to pinch. Although he said he was pinching, he was actually using his fingers to scratch. It had to be said that this soft and smooth bouncy feeling was really good. Fu Yun Ruo laughed silently at the side and held her stomach. While they were fooling around, they suddenly heard a commotion outside. Fu Yun Ruo walked out to see what was going on. It was so noisy. Outside the courtyard, a group of villagers with weapons in their hands stopped Fu Yun Ruo's group at the door. The person who asked the question was Aunt May. She scrutinized the group of people. What are you doing in Shanghe village? Fong Wanting saw the villagers' stance and frowned slightly. Then, Wen Wan said, hello, villagers. We are Yun Ruo's family. Chapter 49. Thank you for taking care of Ruo all these years. Fong Wanting's voice was filled with gratitude. The villagers still did not let down their guard. Ruo's background had been circulating on the internet, and the villagers already knew everything. They even imagined Ruo to be a pitiful little girl. Having a stepmother meant having a stepfather. Wasn't she a pitiful little girl? Oh, Aunt May said softly. Her sharp gaze scrutinized the beautiful woman. You're Ruo's black-hearted stepmother. Fong Wanting looked helpless. People's hearts were biased. They had been with Yun Ruo for a long time and were closer to her. They understood how they felt about protecting Yun Ruo. Since ancient times, it had always been difficult to be a stepmother. No matter how she tried to explain, she would only be seen as quibbling. Fu Zonghong glared at the old woman in dissatisfaction. How can you say that? Fu Zonghong had been in a high position for many years. He had an imposing aura that made people tremble. Did that unfilial daughter go around bad-mouthing her stepmother? And who are you? I'm her father. Aunt May placed her hands on her hips and said loudly, our Ruo is gentle and beautiful. She never bad-mouths people behind their backs. She has never said anything bad about you in front of us. Just based on your current attitude, I know how much Ruo has suffered here. Fong Wanting patted Fu Zonghong's hand, indicating that he should not be calculative. Even if Fu Zonghong pointed at her nose and scolded her, she still kept a low profile. As her elders, we are also at fault. We didn't communicate well with our child and caused her to run away from home for more than 4 years. It's our fault. No matter what, Yun Ruo is Elder Fu's daughter. I hope that the villagers can let us see her and have a good talk. For the past 4 years, seeing how Elder Fu has been so worried about our child, I also feel bad. Fong Wanting said sincerely, as long as she can understand her father, I will apologize to Yun Ruo properly. Aunt Mei scoffed. You speak as if you have been wronged. Who is the one suffering here? What do you mean by running away from home? Aren't you the ones who forced her to leave? If she doesn't leave, she will lose her life. Fong Wanting frowned. We didn't know that Yun Ruo had such a misunderstanding about us, but this is a society ruled by law. Who dares to harm other people's lives? This is a crime punishable by imprisonment. A middle-aged man hesitated and said to Aunt Mei, sister-in-law, is there some kind of misunderstanding? Ruo's stepmother didn't look like someone who would torture her stepdaughter. Hey, did you forget what happened to Yinko 7 years ago? After being reminded by the villagers, everyone remembered. Yingzi had also been tortured by her stepmother for many years. In the beginning, she treated her stepdaughter very well in front of outsiders. The neighbors were also deceived. Later, when the matter was exposed, they were all shocked. That stepmother also looked gentle and kind in front of outsiders. Later, she found out that Yingzi was poked with needles by her stepmother every day. Behind closed doors, she was either beaten or scolded. She did all the work. However, when the truth was revealed, Yingzi had already jumped into the river. She couldn't be saved. After an autopsy, she was found to have needle holes all over her body. The police said that she had been abused for many years. That stepmother's image was too good to outsiders. They didn't expect her to torture her stepdaughter like that. Occasionally, the neighbors would wonder why a child in her teens was so thin and small. To outsiders, she said that the child was picky about food and wanted to lose weight. Her relatives and neighbors also saw that her stepmother was kind enough to give her chicken drumsticks and meat. However, she didn't eat them and only ate vegetables. Because of this, they felt that Yingzi was immature and kindly told her not to go on a diet. It wasn't until she died and the police came to investigate that this evil behavior was exposed. Didn't Ruo have the same experience as Yingzi? They didn't know if Ruo had been abused, but this stepmother's face was very similar. Moreover, Ruo's father didn't look like he was here to look for his daughter. Instead, he looked like he was here to seek revenge. In an instant, everyone's hostility towards Fong Wanting's group grew. Fu Zonghong's expression was impatient. These villagers were too unruly and unreasonable. However, they had the numbers advantage. Fu Zonghong didn't bring many bodyguards with him. He could only be passive. If Fu Yun came out at this time, she opened the courtyard door and suddenly saw a large group of people outside. Her heart skipped a beat. What's wrong? She looked around and then saw a group of people surrounded by people. It was a very conspicuous group of people. Fu Yun was in a daze for a moment before she remembered this face. Wasn't this the original owner's father? Fu Yun was surprised. However, when she saw the few people standing beside her father, she didn't feel surprised. Fu Zonghong saw the woman who walked out of the courtyard door. When he saw that face, he was in a daze. At that moment, it was as if the scene had reappeared. He saw Sang Qing walking towards him. Sang Qing was his first wife. They were in love. When they were young, they were also passionately in love. They entered the palace with longing for the future. Unfortunately, later on, Fong Wanting saw Fu Yunruo and went forward in surprise. Are you Yunruo? It's really you. I've finally found you. You unfilial daughter. You've left home for so many years. Are you looking down on me? Fu Zonghong shouted a few words. He was already prepared to quarrel with Fu Yunruo until his face turned red. However, Fu Yunruo, who used to quarrel with him every time, just looked at him calmly. Her eyes were clear and cold. Fu Zonghong's mind went blank for a moment. He didn't know why, but he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his heart. Fu Yunruo looked indifferent. What are you doing here? Fong Wanting said helplessly, Yunruo, no matter how angry you are with me, you can't joke about yourself. After you left home for so many years, your father thought about you day and night, is that so? Fu Yunruo raised her eyebrows. I thought that without me being an eyesore, your family of 3 would be living a happy life. What are you talking about? Fu Zonghong shouted. Fong Wanting smiled bitterly. There's no overnight feud between father and daughter. If there's any misunderstanding, let's talk about it. There's no misunderstanding. Fu Yunruo smiled. If you really care about me so much, you should have come to look for me in the 4 years that I've been away. Parents who care about their children will be very anxious if they can't contact their children for 3 to 4 hours. If they can't contact their children for 24 hours, they will call the police. What about you? I've been away for more than 4 years, but you didn't come to look for me. Ha! She felt that it was ironic that he thought about her day and night. He probably treated her as if she didn't exist, right? Although Fu Yunruo deliberately hid, if this father really cared about her, he should have at least called the police when he couldn't find her, right? At that time, she scrolled through the news every day. Chairman Fu still went to work as usual. The entire Fu Corporation was peaceful, as if nothing had happened. No one looked for her, and at that time, her tense nerves did relax. But sometimes, when she thought about it, she felt that it was unfair for the original body. Fu Zonghong was so angry that he was trembling. You're the one who ran away from home, and you still think you're in the right. I'm just too good to you, so you don't know the hardships of the world. Without the Fu family, look at how you're living. Fu Yunruo felt sad for the original body. This was her father. He lost contact with a weak woman, but he wasn't worried about the danger she might encounter. Instead, he felt that he could let her experience the hardships of life. Looking at it this way, the situation she was worried about when she first came here might be true. He didn't care about his biological daughter for so many years, so it wasn't strange that he would chase his daughter out of the house. No wonder the original body's personality was getting more and more extreme, and even her biological father was so cruel. I'm fine now. She couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with them. The more she talked, the worse she felt. What exactly do you want to do by lowering yourself to come here? Fong Wanting looked worried. Yunruo, we're here to take you home. You've been angry for so long, so it's time for you to calm down, right? Fu Yunruo said, that's not my home, so why should I go back? Aren't I just looking for trouble? Sister, uncle, really wants you to come home. Fong Shuiruo said in a low voice, looking a little timid. I can go back if you want, as long as these 2 eyesores don't appear in front of me. I don't like them. Oh, if you can't bear to part with them, you can go with them. Fu Yunruo said indifferently. What kind of attitude is that? Fu Zonghong was so angry that his face turned red. This is your mother and sister. Fu Yunruo looked up. My mother has been buried for many years. Is this woman my mother's reincarnated body? She even gave birth to a sister for me. Mr. Fu, what are you saying about my mother? No wonder people are saying that this Mrs. Fang is your first wife, and that Miss Fang Shui Ruo is your only biological daughter. So it was your idea. Aren't you afraid that my mother will climb out of the ground and look for you? What nonsense are you talking about? Fang Wanting felt a chill run down her spine. She forced a smile and said, Yun Ruo, I don't mean to replace my sister. It's all a misunderstanding. Then it's true. Mr. Fu, what about you? Did you know? Fu Zonghong was in a daze. It seemed like someone had said that before. How did he respond at that time? He probably didn't care. Do I have to explain myself over such a small matter? In Fu Zonghong's opinion, this small misunderstanding didn't affect anything. The truth was the truth. Ha! Wen Wen's face was pinched for a long time. His small body exuded an aura of hopelessness. He didn't feel any pain, but his white and tender cheeks flushed as the slightly calloused fingertips gently caressed his face. Wen Wen sighed like a little adult. He had sacrificed a lot, but it was all meaningful. Noticing that his mother had gone out for a long time and hadn't returned, Wen Wen couldn't sit still anymore. He stood up and was about to run out. However, Siyu grabbed him by the back of his collar in time. Wen Wen's short legs were still running in place. He turned his head and looked. Uncle Yu, I want to go out. Don't run around. I'm not running around. I'm going to the courtyard. Wen Wen said anxiously. I'll be back soon. Uncle, look after the meat. Don't burn it. Siyu pulled out the half-burnt firewood and left only a small flame. Then, he led Wen Wen out. When they reached the courtyard, they didn't walk out. Instead, they stood behind the door and listened to the group of people talking outside. When Wen Wen heard that so many people were surrounding his mother, he couldn't take it anymore. He quickly broke free from Siyu's hand and ran out to stand in front of Fu Yunruo. He opened his arms wide and glared at the group of people in front of him. Don't bully my mother. Fu Zonghong looked at the child who looked exactly like Fu Yunruo. Whose child is this? Fu Zonghong was so angry that his face turned red. His whole body was trembling and he felt dizzy. Fang Wanting stepped forward and held his hand while trying to calm him down. Who is that wild man? Fu Zonghong was furious. When Fu Yunruo saw Wen Wen running out, she couldn't be bothered to scold him. She quickly pulled him over and let him hide behind her. After that, Siyu also walked out. Fu Zonghong flew into a rage. It's this man. Siyu looked at the group of people and smiled. It's none of your business, Fu Yunruo said coldly. If there's nothing else, then take care. I won't send you off. It's not convenient to keep guests at home. Fu Yunruo didn't want this matter to be mentioned again and again. She also didn't want her son's background to be discussed. When she turned to the villagers, Fu Yunruo's expression was gentle. Thank you all for today. It's okay. It's what I should do. Don't worry. If anyone dares to bully you in our village, I'll teach them how to behave. Fu Yunruo thanked the villagers and led Wen Wen into the house. Fu Zonghong shouted angrily, "Stop right there." He went forward to stop Fu Yunruo, but was blocked by Siyu. Chairman Fu, please have some self-respect. Sister. Fang Shui Ruo bit her lip and raised her voice slightly as she shouted at Fu Yunruo's back. If my leaving makes you happy, I'll leave. Fu Yunruo pretended not to hear and didn't give any reaction. Siyu waited for the mother and son to enter the house before she went in and closed the door. Fang Shui Ruo lowered her eyes sadly. Chang Zhuyu hugged Fang Shui Ruo and shouted at the courtyard, Fu Yunruo, you evil woman. Don't be so ungrateful. The villagers were just watching the situation unfold, but when they saw their attitude, they couldn't stand it anymore. What's wrong? There's strength in numbers. So many of you ganged up to bully a weak woman. I think you don't care about us at all. Is this the younger sister who stole her stepsister's husband? She's a celebrity. How shameless. He's not her husband yet. I heard that he's her fiancé. People in the city love to use such titles. If she were here, she would have been drowned in everyone's saliva. How could she still have the face to stay here? The father is so biased. His stepdaughter stole his biological daughter's husband, but he's still on his stepdaughter's side and scolded his biological daughter. Indeed, with a stepmother comes a stepfather. This pillow talk is really powerful. This woman is really scheming. I couldn't tell. The villagers booed. That's not all. The first wife's daughter and the first wife's deceased wife have been squeezed out of this family. This is the first time I've heard of this. Yes. The villagers didn't bother to hide their loud voices. Everyone present heard them clearly. Chang Zhuyu saw that Feng Shuiruo's face was red and her eyes were filled with tears. He immediately said hatefully, "What do you bunch of unruly people know?" Aunt May said disdainfully, "We don't know any great principles, but at least we know what etiquette, honor, and shame are." That's right. She still claims to be a well-educated tycoon. She doesn't even have morals. Pfft. Like daughter, like mother. If her daughter is such a trash, her mother must not be a good person either. This man is also a piece of trash. Poor Ruoruo. How could she be so unlucky to meet such despicable people? If I were her biological mother, I wouldn't be able to rest in peace. Fu Zonghong and the others' faces were contorted. They wanted to defend themselves, but the villagers didn't listen to them. They only cared about talking loudly. In the end, Fu Zonghong left with an ashen face. Old Fu. Feng Shui wanted to chase after him worriedly. Only after the group of people left did the villagers disperse. Not far away, 3 young men were lying in a corner. They were trembling with excitement as they watched the camera footage. Breaking news. CU was there too. They were going to be famous. Chapter 50. Fu Zonghong returned to his car and waited for Fong Wanting to get in before instructing the chauffeur to leave. Fong Wanting did not look too happy either, but she still comforted him gently. "Old Fu, don't be angry. We will come again tomorrow. We sincerely invite Yun Ruo back. We haven't found her for so many years. It's normal for her to be angry. It's also my fault. I should have insisted on finding her." Fong Wanting sighed. "What does it have to do with you? If the news of the Fu family's daughter running away from home gets out, won't we become a joke in our circle?" Fu Zonghong said subconsciously. He frowned. She did something wrong and is too ashamed to face others. I still want to save my face. Old Fu. Fong Wanting shouted in disagreement. Then she said helplessly, "In the end, Shui Ruo is also in the wrong. No matter what, she should not have agreed to Yu's pursuit. After all, she was engaged to Yun Ruo." The world did not look at the process. They only knew the outcome. The person who was engaged to the elder sister ended up with the younger sister. What's wrong with the 2 children loving each other? When the 2 families were engaged, they were still young. If I knew this would happen, would not have arranged their marriage. Fong Wanting said softly, "After all, Yun Ruo likes Yu too." Obviously, she felt helpless that the 2 sisters liked the same man. Now the internet is saying that Shui Ruo came between the elder sister and her future brother-in-law. Sigh. Fong Wanting sighed softly. Fu Zonghong frowned and said directly, the news on the internet cannot be trusted. Once people open their mouths, there will be all kinds of nonsense. I will get someone to suppress it. Fu Zonghong spent most of his time and energy on work. He did not read the entertainment news on the internet. He only watched financial channels and financial magazines. Fu Zonghong's chest was full of anger. He leaned against the back of the seat and closed his eyes to rest. Fong Wanting saw this and considerately did not disturb him. She turned her head to look at the car window. The scenery outside the window flashed by, and it was reflected in her eyes like a flash of light. Fu Zonghong closed his eyes and slowly calmed down. However, a pair of cold eyes kept appearing in his mind. They had lived together for more than 10 years in the past. Whenever they met, they would quarrel with each other. When she was still underage, she started to put on heavy makeup and had a bad temper. She turned the house upside down. It was only now that he realized that his daughter looked so much like Sang-Ching. The memories buried in the depths of his mind surfaced at this moment. It had been a long time since he thought of Sang-Ching. Siyu closed the door and shut out all the noise outside. Fu Yun instantly felt that her ears were much quieter. Wen hugged Fu Yun Ruo with concern in his eyes. He said in a childish voice, "Mommy, don't be sad. Baby loves Mommy the most." Fu Yun Ruo listened to the little darling's cute comforting words and the gloominess in her heart disappeared. She squatted down and hugged the warm and soft little Sunday. Mommy is not sad because Mommy has Wen, this big darling. Mommy loves Wen the most. Wen's little mouth could not help but curl up. Yes, he would not admit that those who hurt his mother were his relatives. Wen already knew that the person outside just now was his biological grandfather. But so what? The only person he accepted was Fu Yun Ruo. Fu Yun Ruo also had the same thoughts. Wen was her only relative. If Father Fu treated the original owner of her body well, she would fulfill her responsibility as a child. However, Fu Zonghong really could not bear to be a father. She could not treat him as an elder. Wen loves Mommy the most too. Fu Yun Ruo rubbed his tender and smooth cheeks. She was extremely grateful to herself for making the right decision. If it was not for Wen, she did not know how she would be living in this world where she had no one to rely on. Wen took the initiative to rub against her and even kissed her face. His heart ached for his mother. He had more or less guessed what had happened in the past. In the future, with him around, he would definitely not let them bully his mother again. Siyu looked at the mother and son pair being affectionate and stood at the side without saying a word. Suddenly, Fu Yun Ruo thought of something. Ah, my beard duck. Could it be that it was burnt? Fu Yun Ruo hurriedly ran into the kitchen. Wen Ruo ran with his short legs. His fragrant meat. She opened the lid of the pot and a rich fragrance wafted out. Fu Yun Ruo used a spatula to stir-fry it. She was collecting the sauce now. Fortunately, it was not burnt. Wen Ruo smelled the fragrance and salivated. Mommy, is it done? Is it done? Wen Ruo tried his best to stand on tiptoe. With his height, he could not see the surface of the stove, let alone the meat in the pot. Mommy, I can try it. Wen Ruo blinked his big eyes. His small mouth unconsciously opened wide, as if he was waiting to be fed. Wait a little longer. It will be more delicious if it stews for a while. Fu Yun Ruo looked at the stove. There was only a vigorous spark left. She only added a thin piece of firewood and extinguished the fire to simmer it slowly. Wen Ruo was extremely disappointed. Sigh, he wanted to eat fragrant meat. Fu Yun Ruo looked at Siyu Ruo. Mr. Yu, can I ask you for a favor? Siyu looked over and gestured for her to speak. Can you invite Uncle May and Aunt May over? Although he had already told Aunt May before, if he did not invite them, they would definitely not come over. Siyu Ruo agreed and then left the kitchen. The duck meat was stewed for a while. When Fu Yun Ruo saw that the sauce was almost done, she put it on a plate. Mom! Mom! Wen jumped up and down at the side. Wait a little longer. Fu Yun took out Wen's small bowl. I want duck feet. I want duck neck. Eat a piece first. Fu Yun placed a duck's foot in his small bowl. Let me say this first. You can only eat 3 pieces of meat tonight. This is the first piece of meat. Although there were no spices, the beer duck was still considered to have a strong taste. If Fu Yun strictly limited his appetite, he would not be able to eat it. Wen nodded. He loved to eat the fragrant meat, but he still had to listen to his mother. Moreover, as long as he had something to eat, it was fine. He couldn't eat too much at one time, but he could eat more. Fu Yun made a light vegetable soup. At the same time, she steamed an egg custard for Wen in a small pot. This was his main dish. Not long after, Siyu returned with Uncle May and Aunt May. Grandpa May, Grandma May. Wen hugged his small bowl and gnawed on the duck's foot with relish. When he saw the 3 adults raise his head and call for them, there was some sauce on his fair and tender cheeks. Aunt May immediately smiled and said a few words to Wen before entering the kitchen. Siyu saw Wen like this. His fair and tender little claws were grabbing the duck's foot and eating until there was sauce around his mouth. He went to the living room and took a few pieces of tissue paper to wipe his mouth. Wen consciously raised his head and let Siyu help wipe his mouth. After that, he continued eating. Siyu looked at the juicy little mouth that had just been cleaned. When Wen was still unsatisfied, Siyu brought him to wash his hands and face. This time, it was clean. Wen ran over to act coquettishly with Fu Yun. Uncle May and Aunt May watched with a smile. At this moment, the sky outside had already darkened. When the lights were turned on, they seemed to be coated with a layer of warm light. When Siyu saw this scene, a corner of his heart softened. This was the so-called atmosphere of the human world. Uncle May and Aunt May saw that Fu Yun did not take the previous incident to heart and acted as usual. They did not mention it at all, so the atmosphere was harmonious for the entire night. Aunt May and Fu Yun were cleaning up in the kitchen. Siyu and Wen were playing in the courtyard. Uncle May sat under the roof and watched. Aunt May said, I've asked around about the kindergarten for you. Wait until September and you can register directly. When the time comes, your uncle will accompany you. There are only 2 kindergartens in town. The children in our village are sent to Little Angel Kindergarten. We will also be sent there. Okay, thank you. Fu Yun hesitated and did not say what he wanted to say. After Uncle May left, the 4 of them finished washing up. It was already 10 o'clock. Aunt May had already returned to her room to sleep. At this moment, only Fu Yun, her son, and Siyu were in the living room. Fu Yun looked at Wen, who was nestled in Siyu's arms and muttering, and said, Wen, it's time to sleep. Wen reached out to Fu Yun. Hug. Fu Yun walked over and leaned over slightly to carry Wen. The fragrance of the same shower gel was faintly discernible. For some reason, Siyu felt that this woman's body smelled better. Mr. Yu, good night. Wen hugged Fu Yun's neck and turned to look at Siyu. Uncle Yu, good night. Siyu said, good night. Only Siyu was left in the living room. He sat for a while before returning to his room. Siyu took out his cell phone and tapped on the screen to open a series of unread messages. Yuan Axayan had sent over dozens of messages. He read them from beginning to end, and the last sentence was that the matter had been resolved. Siyu replied to the message and then received a voice call request. After Siyu answered the call, Yuan Axayan's voice was heard. The Fu Corporation has suppressed all the news that is unfavorable to Feng Shui. What needed to be clarified had already been clarified. Now that the Fu family and the Chang family had joined forces to pressure them, Apple Entertainment had to think twice. They simply suppressed the news and did not slander Fu Yun. They simply allowed them to spend money to suppress the news. Siyu raised his eyebrows. Keep an eye on the internet. Don't let anyone make an issue out of Ruoruo. This Chairman Fu was really speechless. If he had not investigated thoroughly, he would have suspected that Feng Shui was the illegitimate daughter of Chairman Fu and his true love. How could a person who could run his family's business so well not be able to see through the people around him? Understood. Yuan Axayan said, the few young men who came to secretly film today have confessed that someone leaked the news to them. However, they do not know who leaked it to them. We have tried to trace it, but we can't find the source of the information. Ask them to keep their mouths shut. Understood. The news of you being there will be exposed sooner or later. You should prepare to leave. Anyone who wanted to investigate would be able to find out where Siyu and the rest were filming the show. They could not stay there any longer. I have a plan. After coaxing Wen to sleep, Fu Yun lay in bed and did not feel sleepy. Although she said that she did not care, in the dead of the night, she could not help but be affected. These people had a great influence on the original owner of her body, so much so that she felt irritated. If it were not for her gentle personality, she might not have been able to suppress her anger and scold Fu Zonghong. Fu Yun lay in bed and thought about it. The more she thought about it, the more irritated she became. Old memories flashed through her mind. She tried to control herself not to think about it, but the more she thought about it, the more energetic she became. She did not dare to toss and turn as she was worried that she would wake Wen up. In the end, she quietly got out of bed and walked out of the room in the dark to the courtyard to clear her head. The lights in the living room were dimly lit, and there was a little light in the courtyard. Fu Yun quietly moved a small stool to sit under the eaves. She looked at the night sky and fell into a daze. Can't sleep. A low voice suddenly came from behind her. Chapter 51. Fu Yun Ruo turned around and saw Siyu standing behind her. She whispered apologetically, "Did I wake you up?" When she came out, her movements were already very light. She did not expect to wake him up. Siyu said, "I just came out to drink some water." He shook the cup in his hand. What he meant was that he was not woken up by her. Moreover, at this time, he was not asleep yet. Siyu put down the cup and used another clean cup to fill half a cup of hot tea. With his other hand, he brought a stool over and sat down beside Fu Yun Ruo. Siyu handed the cup to Fu Yun Ruo. Fu Yun Ruo took it and thanked him. The stool was very short and small. After Siyu sat down, he had nowhere to place his long legs. He stretched his legs casually. The two of them were silent for a moment. Fu Yun Ruo held the cup with both hands and felt the temperature that was not boiling hot. Then, she took 2 sips. It was very quiet in the courtyard and outside. It was so quiet that only the sound of cicadas and frogs could be heard. Fu Yun Ruo's mood also calmed down. Siyu suddenly asked, "Are you going to stay here with the child?" "Of course not." Fu Yun Ruo said, "After all, the education resources here are not as good as those in the big cities. Wen has grown up and also needs to study." She had already asked Tian to help her find housing resources. However, after considering all aspects, she could not go out for a while. Previously, Fu Yunruo chose to look for housing in the capital mainly because she had more acquaintances. It was not necessary to go to a completely unfamiliar city and blindly search. If there was anything, they could take care of each other. Considering this, when she first opened her studio, she also opened it in the capital. Now that these old friends had appeared one by one, if Fu Yun thought that they were also in the capital, wouldn't she be disturbed every 2 to 3 days in the future? It was always annoying to have flies flying around in front of her. But on second thought, there was no need for her to hide from them. She also did not have the time to block her all day long, right? It seemed as if she was afraid of them. If Fu Yun felt that she would be at a disadvantage if she gave up such a superior environment like the imperial capital for them, wouldn't she? Fu Yun had originally considered whether she should change cities. Now that she thought about it, she had not done anything wrong. Why should she give up a more familiar and superior environment for them? See you. His eyes flickered and he pretended to ask casually, "Are you going to the capital?" Fu Yun nodded. "I'm going to take a look at it at the end of the month." "When are we leaving?" "There's no hurry. If we really go there, it'll be after the new year." "Well, if you have any difficulties, you can tell me. I can still help." Fu Yun's eyes curved into crescents. "All right, if there's really a need, I won't be polite." Of course, she didn't think that she would encounter any trouble that was difficult to solve. "If you don't want to see those people again, I can help." Siyu thought that these people would be of some use. After he helped to resolve this matter, Fu Yun would no longer have to worry about anything. In the end, she already had a plan. Siyu felt that what he had done previously was extremely stupid. Fu Yun looked at him in surprise and shook her head. "I can solve my own problems." Although Siyu had the support of the company, the outcome of going against the Son of Destiny was not too good. Fu Yun didn't want him to ruin his bright future because of her. "You've already done enough for us." Fu Yun thought to herself. Siyu really liked Wen. He could actually go to this extent. Siyu didn't say anything for a moment. After a moment, he asked, "What do you think of the Fu family?" "Ah." Fu Yun didn't react for a moment and there was a hint of confusion in her eyes. "What do you think of Chairman Fu?" This concerned his attitude towards his son's biological grandfather. He had to act according to his son's mother's mood. Fu Yun hesitated. "If I say that he's not my father in my heart, will you think that I'm cold-blooded?" Her father in the other world couldn't be more outstanding compared to the one in this world. Although he didn't spend much time by her side when she was young, he was like her mother and doted on her very much. He would remember her birthday and give her gifts. He would also try his best to be by her side on special occasions. She couldn't agree with this father in her heart. However, she also knew that blood ties couldn't be cut off. If she took the initiative to sever ties, the world would only condemn her and point fingers at her from the opposite side. She wasn't afraid of these rumors and slanders, but she was worried about Wen. Wen could make her fearless in her armor, but he was also her only weakness. She couldn't bear to let him face even the slightest bit of rumors. "Sometimes, I really don't know what to do." She couldn't ignore everything that had happened to the original body. One day, she would have to resolve it, no matter how. "No." Siyu looked at her and said word by word, "You've already done very well. No matter what you want to do, I'll support you." Fu Yun looked up at him. Inexplicably, she felt that Siyu was especially dazzling at this moment, so she didn't dare to look directly at him. She responded softly and felt much more relaxed. "Forget it, everything will be fine when it comes to it." She would take her own steps and take it slowly. "It's very late. Go back and sleep." Fu Yun thought that she had been out for a long time. It wouldn't be good if Wen woke up, so she stood up and said, "Then I'll go back to my room." "Mr. Yu, thank you. Good night." "Good night." Siyu watched Fu Yun go back to her room. He also went back to his room and immediately summoned Yuan Axan. He asked him to find out if Fu Yun was going to buy a house or rent a house, if there were any movements, if there were any difficulties, and if necessary, he would provide assistance. Yuan Axan said in surprise, "You managed to convince her." Yuan Axan clicked his tongue in wonder. It was really not easy to convince someone so quickly. "See you." He thought of many persuasive words, but he didn't say a single one. She had already planned to do so. There was no need to say such a shameful thing, but who was Yuan Axan? As a manager who had been with Siyu for 10 years, even if he didn't fully understand Siyu's temperament, he could occasionally understand some of it. When he noticed Siyu's unusual silence, he immediately thought of many things. Hence, he probed, did she change her mind? "Siyu. I'm hanging up. Goodbye." This manager was always smart in areas where he shouldn't be. Before Siyu hung up the phone, he heard Yuan Axan suddenly burst into laughter. His eyebrows twitched. Wasn't it just a miscalculation? What was so funny? However, even though there was a small error in the process, the final result was what he wanted. Hence, Siyu was in a very good mood. In the next 2 days, those people did not come to look for her. Fu Yun heaved a sigh of relief. It was good that they didn't come to bother her. However, even though they didn't come, the production team did. When she heard the production team's request, Fu Yun didn't react for a long time. "You mean you want to invite me to participate in the show?" "Yes, Miss Fu. We hope that you can consider it carefully. Our production team will pay you an additional 20% of your value," Director Pink said sincerely. "Also, you don't have to re-record from beginning to end. We just hope that you can finish recording the remaining 5 days of the show." The production team was very sincere. They really had no other choice. When they received news that Feng Shui was coming back, they specially went to stop her. Finally, they received an affirmative answer. Feng Shui was not filming anymore. The production team could also find someone else to save the show. However, the A-list male and female celebrity schedules were very slow recently, so they couldn't find the time. As for the celebrities who had the time to save the show, they weren't as famous as Feng Shui. Even though her image had collapsed recently, she wasn't someone that B-list celebrities could step on openly. To replace Feng Shui's position. Not only was her backing not to be trifled with, but they also didn't dare to provoke her crazy fans. They weren't afraid that if the celebrities with backing Feng Shui couldn't find the time to save the show, and if the celebrities with the time to save the show were worried about offending Feng Shui, the consequences wouldn't be worth it. As a result, they couldn't find anyone to save the show. Was this show destined to end prematurely? Just as he was having a headache, an assistant from the production team suggested that they look for Fu Yun. Director Pang's eyes lit up. This was a great idea. Because of the past dispute with Feng Shui, Fu Yun had gained some recognition among the public. And Fu Yun was also one of the A-list streamers in the live streaming industry, so she had some fame too. Furthermore, her fans had only seen her face recently, so it was a rare moment. Before her identity was revealed, she was already on the hot search list based on her looks. This showed that she was very popular. And she was here in person. As long as she nodded, they could start filming immediately. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was a good idea. Director Peng brought his assistant and hurriedly found Fu Yun to tell her his request. Fu Yun found it unbelievable when she heard it. The production team invited her to do the show. No matter how she looked at it, this matter had nothing to do with her, right? Miss Fu, only you can help us. If the show doesn't continue filming, the production team will be scrapped. Director Peng pleaded. We thought about it and only you are the most suitable for our production team. Director Peng's voice kept crackling, and Fu Yun felt a little dizzy from the shock. I'm sorry, but I can't agree. Why don't you find someone else? Fu Yun didn't want to participate in the variety show, let alone replace Feng Shui. She felt disgusted. Miss Fu, Wen's little head popped out of the door. He leaned against the door and blinked his bright eyes. Grandpa Director, are you inviting my mother to participate in the show? Wen's black eyes rolled around. Was his mother going to enter the entertainment industry? Director Peng said with a smile, yes. Little kid, do you want to see your mother on TV? Director Peng had a good impression of this lively child, and his voice couldn't help but sweeten a few degrees. Fu Yun looked at the mischievous child and said helplessly, children shouldn't interrupt when adults are talking. Wen's chubby cheeks suddenly puffed up. I'm not a child anymore. I'm an adult. He pattered in and straightened his small body. He said seriously, my mother doesn't work in the entertainment industry. The entertainment industry was so deep. He hadn't grown up and didn't have the ability to protect his mother. He didn't want his mother to get involved. Why? You can earn a lot of money if you enter the entertainment industry. You can buy a lot of candy and toys. Director Peng. Fu Yun frowned. The child is still young. How could she tell him so many things that a child shouldn't hear? Money? A light bulb lit up on Wen's little head. He had been a normal child and enjoyed a carefree life. However, the appearance of Feng Shui and her mother, the Fu and Chang families, made Wen feel a sense of crisis. Compared to those people, his mother was too weak. He wanted to protect his mother and let her have someone to rely on. However, he was too young. His small arms and legs couldn't fight against those huge assets. Since that was the case, he could only grow up in advance. The first thing he had to do when he grew up was to earn a lot of money and accumulate wealth. Only then could he fight against them. No one wanted him to do other jobs with his small body. The only thing that could make him earn money at this age was being a child star. He wasn't afraid of the slanderous words on the internet. Wen raised his little hand and asked loudly, "Can I participate?" Director Peng looked at Wen and thought about how popular he was on the internet. He was very tempted. If his mother didn't want to participate, his son could too. Director Peng immediately replied, "Sure. I'll pay you according to your mother's current net worth." "Sorry, my son doesn't want to participate either." Fu Yun frowned and refused. "I still have something to do. Forgive me for not being able to entertain you. Please help yourself." Director Peng was chased away. He looked at Wen. This child didn't have the right to speak. He had to get Fu Yun's approval first. He could only say, "Whether it's Miss Fu or Mr. Fu, or both of you together, our production team will agree. I hope you can reconsider. I'll come again tomorrow." After Director Peng left, only Fu Yun and her son were left in the living room. She looked at Wen, who was tiptoeing and drawing circles. "Fu Wen, filming a show is not for fun. It's for adults. You haven't even gone to kindergarten, so you can't participate in an adult's show," Fu Yun said sternly. Wen retorted, "I know there are child stars." He wasn't a real child. It's very tough being a child star. After you become a child star, you can't eat too much meat and you can't play with your friends. Even if you want to sleep in the afternoon, you won't be able to sleep. Then you'll be very tired every day. Wen. He hesitated. He could endure hardships, but he couldn't eat meat. Wen endured the pain and said, It's okay, I want to earn a lot of money. He wanted to save money early. In the future, when he competed with the Fu Corporation for resources and forced them to go bankrupt, he wouldn't leave anything for them. Wen was ambitious. In his previous life, he wasn't able to bring down the Fong Corporation. This time, he had more than 10 years of accumulated money and connections. He didn't believe that he couldn't bring down this giant. Is there a shortage of food or entertainment at home? Do you want a little child like you to go out and earn money early? Wen saw that his mother didn't want to give in. He knew that she didn't want him to be exposed to the public too early. But he also wanted to protect his mother. In the end, Wen used a child's trick. His small body lay on the ground and he rolled over and over. I want to film a show, I want to film a show, Fu Yun, what's wrong? Chapter 52. When Siyu returned from outside, the living room was bustling with noise. Loud noises reverberated in the air. Wen was rolling around on the floor, making the floor clean. His chubby hands and legs waved at the sky from time to time. He was like a little fat turtle that was trying to turn over but could not. Fu Yun raw face-bombed. Where did Wen learn to throw a tantrum like this? She did not know whether to laugh or cry. Wen howled from time to time. He kept glancing at Fu Yun raw and 2 drops of crocodile tears came out from the corners of his eyes. Why wasn't his mother's heart softening? He was also tired from rolling around. Siyu looked at the white and chubby little ball rolling around. Coupled with the child's sharp but not ear-piercing voice, he sounded like a little pig squeaking. Siyu squatted at the side and poked the little chubby leg that was like a lotus root. He smiled and said, "Roll around, little fat pig." Wen. Feeling offended, he suddenly became angry. You're the fat one. This is baby fat. It'll be gone when you grow up. Yes. Siyu nodded perfunctorily and pinched the flesh on his little chubby leg. Wen snorted from his little nostrils. After being interrupted by Siyu, Wen couldn't continue howling. He crawled up from the ground and when he passed by, he stretched out his little foot and stepped on Siyu's foot. Then, he ran to Fu Yunruo's side and hugged her thigh. He complained, "Mommy, Uncle, you bullied me." Siyu raised his eyebrows. His foot was being stepped on and it felt like an itch. The little guy was becoming more and more rude to him recently. He said calmly, "Little tattletale." Wen looked up. Humph. Siyu. He looked even more like a little pig. Fu Yun squatted down and patted Wen's clothes. After rolling on the ground, her clothes were covered in dust. Wen looked at Fu Yun Ruo with a puzzled expression. Why couldn't he act coquettishly? When he saw that his underlings wanted to eat candies and buy small toys, he could get his way by rolling on the ground a few times. Thus, she changed to another way to act coquettishly. "Mommy, just promise me." Meng's cute little voice sounded as if it was mixed with sugar. It was so sweet that Fu Yun also felt sweet in her heart. However, he still had to be firm in his stance. No. Mommy baby loves you the most. Fu Yun allowed him to act cute and coquettishly, but she remained unmoved. No. Siyu looked at the mother and son. He had only been out for a while. What had he missed? Siyu asked, "What is Wen trying to do?" Fu Yun Ruo briefly told him about the program's director looking for her. Then, she said helplessly, "He wants to participate in the program." Siyu. He lowered his head and looked at Wen who was hugging Fu Yun Ruo's thighs and looking at him with a pair of big eyes. His little eyes were constantly sending out signals. "Quickly help me say something. We are good friends. This isn't fun. Wen retorted angrily, I don't want to play. I want to earn money. Uncle Yu was too inconsiderate. What happened to being willing to sacrifice himself for a friend? He didn't even help him with a small favor and even slandered him for wanting to play. He was a man who wanted to earn big money. This friend didn't understand him at all. He didn't want him anymore. Wen stared at Siyu with condemnation. Siyu could only say, I misunderstood. Only then did Wen retract his gaze in satisfaction. Then, he looked up at Fu Yunruo. Mommy, just agree, Wen. Fu Yunruo patiently reasoned with him. If you go to film a show, there will be many people who don't know you who will see you. Some of them might not like you and scold you. If Mommy sees someone scolding you, she will be very sad. I'm not afraid. Wen's voice sounded like he was about to cry. Mommy, he had experienced an overwhelming amount of ridicule, abuse, and curses. At worst, it would be as dark as his previous life. He could bear it, but he couldn't bear his mother being surrounded by evil intentions. Wen thought that he would perform well on the show and let more people like him. Then, he would like his mother as well. This time, he would take good care of his reputation. He would not let his reputation be mixed and he would not let others have the chance to slander him. Seeing this, Siyu carried Wen, who was about to cry. My little friend is under my protection. Naturally, he can do whatever he wants. Siyu looked at Fu Yunruo and said seriously, don't worry, I will protect Wen. Wen looked at Fu Yunruo expectantly. Fu Yunruo hesitated. Siyu promised, with me around, no matter if Wen wants to film a television series, a movie, or participate in a show, there won't be a problem. He won't be hurt at all. Otherwise, you will hold me responsible. Thank you, Uncle Yu. Wen was so happy that his eyes narrowed. He hugged Siyu's shoulder and leaned over to rub his face. This friend was really loyal. He didn't let him down. Fu Yunruo suddenly remembered that in the original novel, Wen had been in the entertainment industry since he was in his teens. Could it be that Wen loved acting? If that was the case, should she stop him? Baby, do you like acting? Fu Yunruo's expression was a little complicated. In the original novel, he could become a top celebrity without anyone protecting him. This time, with someone protecting him, he would have a smooth journey, right? Fu Yunruo had heard of Siyu's status in the entertainment industry. He was also the only person in the original novel who retired after achieving success. Even 20 years later, he was still a legendary figure. With Siyu protecting Wen, he wouldn't be so bumpy, right? Otherwise, she would still be around. The wall between the live broadcast industry and the entertainment industry was not thick. If she worked a little harder and had more connections, she would be able to let Wen have a smoother journey, right? They wouldn't end up like the original novel. When Wen heard his mother's question, he was stunned for a moment. He looked hesitant. He had never thought about whether he liked acting or not. In his heart, acting was just a way for him to make a living. Did he like acting? He thought about how he would spend the entire night thinking about a role, just to act it to the best of his ability. He thought about how he was an extra, lying on the ground for 3 to 4 hours under the scorching sun. Even if he didn't have any scenes, he still worked hard to complete it. He thought about how he wanted to hone his acting skills, when Wen's eyes became brighter, and at that moment, they were as bright as a flower. I like acting. Yes, he liked acting. He liked to play different roles and live different lives. He liked to be in the limelight and be the center of attention. Fu Yunruo wavered. Let me think about it, should she agree? But the child was still so young. Siyu put Wen down and patted the back of his head. Go and play with your friends. Wen looked up at Uncle Yu, then at his mother. Mom, I'll go out first. Go ahead, be careful. Wen hesitated for a moment, then ran out. When the child's small figure disappeared from sight, Siyu looked at Fu Yunruo. I understand your concerns. Don't worry, with me around, he won't be disturbed in any way. Fu Yunruo hesitated and said, Mr. Yu, I know you treat Wen well and have always tolerated Wen's willfulness, but we've already troubled you enough. We really can't give you any more trouble. It's no trouble at all. Siyu smiled. Wen is very clever. If he wants to develop in the entertainment industry, he can sign a contract with Apple Entertainment. The company will protect him. In order to increase his credibility, he continued, I'm one of the shareholders of the company. Moreover, with Yuan Axean and Qi Weiqing around, they should believe me, right? One was recognized as the #1 manager in the entertainment industry and loved Wen as his own son. The other was a top manager and had a close relationship with Fu Yunruo. He was also Uncle Guo's student. Fu Yunruo was not worried. With these connections, wouldn't Wen be doted on in Apple Entertainment? Moreover, Fu Yunruo had a very good impression of Apple Entertainment. The way he protected his son was really reassuring. Oh, so Siyu also had shares in the company. Fu Yunruo was surprised for a moment, but she did not find it surprising. Siyu was the #1 in the company, so it was normal for him to have shares in the company. No wonder he did not open his own studio. She herself had almost been persuaded by Brother Qi to join Apple Entertainment. Although it did not work out in the end, she had to say that it was really fate. You can sign an agreement with Apple Entertainment. Of course, you won't force Wen to act or do other things. If he wants to act, he will act. If he doesn't want to act, he won't act. If he wants to leave the entertainment industry, he can leave at any time. When he grows up, he will prioritize Apple Entertainment. You can consider whether to let Yuan Axean or Qi Weiqing be the manager. I personally lean towards Yuan Axean. Qi Weiqing has 3 first and second-tier artists under him, but Yuan Axean only has me as an artist. His private life will not be disturbed. He will be like an ordinary child, living a carefree life. The last sentence hit the spot that Fu Yunruo was most concerned about. She was hesitant because Wen was too young. She was worried that after he became a child star, he would not be able to live a carefree and happy life like an ordinary child. She was worried that he would come into contact with the complicated world of adults too early. If he could really do what Siyu said, she would not reject him. Fu Yunruo thought that perhaps after filming this variety show, Wen would not be interested in these things. There was no need for her to think too much. With her and Brother Qi around, they would be able to protect a child no matter what. She thought about it for a while, then thought about it for a while. In the end, she gritted her teeth and said, okay. Siyu smiled and said, I'll get someone to draft a contract later. Since she had already agreed, Fu Yunruo was straightforward and said, okay, but I have a request. I want to be there when Wen is filming. No matter what, she had to see it with her own eyes to feel at ease. Of course. Siyu called Yuan Axean and explained the matter clearly in front of Fu Yunruo. The contents of the contract were very detailed. Fu Yunruo thought about it. She had never seen such a preferential contract before. On one hand, she felt a little embarrassed and felt that she was taking advantage of him. On the other hand, because it was Wen, she thickened her skin and accepted this kindness. Wen was playing outside absent-mindedly. He kept thinking about whether Uncle Yu had persuaded his mother. In the end, he could not help but reject his friend's invitation and ran home alone. When he reached home, his mother and Uncle Yu were chatting peacefully, but they were not talking about him. Is that so? I haven't been back to the capital for a long time. So it has changed so much. To be honest, I don't have much memory of the capital. When we return to the capital, I'll take you there. I definitely won't disappoint you. Once your face is exposed, you'll probably be surrounded and unable to move. Are you sure you can take me there? Of course, my disguise skills are very good. I'll let you see it then. Then I'll look forward to it. Wen tilted his head. For some reason, he felt that he was a little extra, as if he should not have come back. Wen shouted, "Mom!" Then, he rushed over like a small cannonball and threw himself into Fu Yunruo's arms, announcing his strong presence. Fu Yunruo carried Wen up and sat him on her lap. "Why are you back so early?" "I missed Mom." Fu Yunruo pinched his little face. "Your little mouth is so sweet. Did you eat honey?" Hee hee. Wen twisted his little body and said cutely, "I love Mom the most." Siyu looked at the mother and son who acted as if there was no one else around and narrowed his eyes slightly. He sized up the little guy who was acting coquettishly against Fu Yunruo and thought to himself, I shouldn't have spoken up for him just now. Look at how he's kicking me to the curb after I've outlived my usefulness. Is he going to throw me away after using me? Wen glanced at Siyu from the corner of his eyes. His little eyes were filled with pride. Mom was his. Mom wouldn't neglect him. Wen coaxed Fu Yunruo until she was beaming with joy. After a long time, he asked carefully, "Mom, did you agree?" Fu Yunruo saw the little hope that could not be hidden in his eyes and did not beat around the bush. "Yes, I agreed." Wen's little face instantly lit up. He leaned over and kissed her face softly. "I love Mom the most." "Thank you, Mom." Fu Yunruo deliberately put on a straight face. "Don't tell me I won't love Mom if I don't agree. I love you. I love you so much." As he spoke, he even made a heart with his little chubby hand. Fu Yunruo was amused by Wen's words. Ahem. Siyu Ruo, who was at the side, could not help but cough lightly. He looked at Wen. He was the one who had contributed greatly. In order to persuade Fu Yunruo to agree, he had spent a lot of effort. Wen turned to look at him. She blinked and said with concern, "Uncle Yu, have you caught a cold? Remember to take your medicine. Otherwise, if it gets serious, you'll have to get a butt injection." Fu Yunruo could not hold back. Pfft. See you. He looked at Wen's innocent and harmless little face and secretly gritted his teeth. This brat. While they were chatting and laughing, Yuan Axayan rushed over with a head full of sweat. He held a briefcase in his hand and his face was flushed red. "Hey, from now on, I'll be Wen's manager. Little Wen, please take good care of me." Yuan Axayan beamed with joy. He never expected that before Siyu retired from the entertainment industry, he would be able to do such a great thing. It was great that he had brought his son into the entertainment industry. He could still continue to show his enthusiasm. Siyu, this man, was sometimes a little obnoxious, but he would still inform him of important decisions. For example, before filming that movie, he had already expressed his intention to retire from the entertainment industry. Yuan Axayan understood. After all, this ancestor had entered the entertainment industry mainly out of interest, but it was more of a hobby. There was still a huge business waiting for him to take care of. Siyu had not filmed much in the past few years, mainly because he had already taken over the family business. 2 years ago, he had already taken over the family business completely. In the future, he would definitely not have enough time to film anymore. Yuan Axayan had taken care of a few celebrities. Although they had all achieved great success, they had all left the entertainment industry at the top of their careers or for other reasons. He felt mentally tired and had already decided not to take care of any more celebrities. He had already decided to retire behind the scenes. But now, he could. Yuan Axian looked at Wen with sparkling eyes. What a good seedling with spiritual energy. He could still do it. He could definitely turn Wen into a top child star and let the whole world look forward to his growth. Wen blinked and was so shocked that she could not react. Manager. Uncle Yuan. Yuan Axian. Did he hear wrongly? What did Mom and Uncle Yu discuss? Wasn't it just filming a show first? Why did they even discuss signing a contract with a manager? Fu Yunruo was confused when she heard Yuan Axian's words. She did not seem to have said who would be her manager. Yuan Axian could not wait any longer. He took out a stack of papers from his briefcase. Miss Fu, take a look at this contract. If there are no problems, you can sign it. Fu Yunruo picked it up and read it carefully. Yuan Axian could not wait for Fu Yunruo to sign it immediately. He did not disturb her and it was quiet for a moment. Yuan Axian looked at Wen and smiled amiably. Wen had a serious expression on her face as she read the contract with Fu Yunruo in a serious manner. It was as if she could understand it. He wiped his sweat and gave Siyu a flattering look. Although Siyu had a domineering personality and was very picky and hard to please, he was really good. He was actually willing to hand his son over to him. What kind of trust was this? He was so touched. Siyu's hair stood on end when he saw Yuan Axian's mushy look. He could not help but glare at him and then looked at the adult and child. Their extremely similar faces had the same expression. It was as if they were cast from the same mold. Fu Yunruo finished reading the contract carefully. The contents were basically the same as what Siyu had said. There were no loopholes in the contract. It was a contract that was completely biased towards them. Fu Yunruo felt that Siyu and the rest were at a disadvantage. She was too embarrassed to let them suffer too much. Fu Yunruo pointed at the remuneration. This percentage. Wasn't it too much? Siyu glanced at her. You think that 30 to 70 is too little? I think so too. Why don't we change it to 19 to 90? Yuan Axian also nodded in agreement. Anyway, Apple Entertainment was one of CU's subsidiaries. Wen was CU's biological son and could be the future heir of the C family. It would not be too much even if all the remuneration went to him. The entire company had to treat him like an ancestor. Fu Yunruo. You didn't see wrongly. It's Apple Entertainment's number 1, Wen's number 9. No. Fu Yunruo waved her hands. Let's do 30 to 70. Fu Yunruo was afraid that if she continued to talk, it would be too ridiculous to change it to 19 to 90. She quickly signed the contract. Yuan Axian quickly put away the contract. Happy cooperation. Happy cooperation. Brother Yuan had already volunteered to be Wen's manager. If Fu Yunruo did not have any objections, she would not have to trouble Brother Qi. It was also quite good. I'll give you the contract after the company stamps it and sends it back in 2 days. Fu Yunruo was actually a little doubtful. Would the company be willing to sign such a generous contract? However, when she thought about CU's status as the number 1 in Apple Entertainment, she threw this little doubt to the back of her mind. Yuan Axian came in a hurry and left in a hurry. After knowing that Wen wanted to participate in the variety show, he went to look for the production team aggressively. Time passed quickly and it was soon time for dinner. Fu Yunruo went to the kitchen to cook. Wen's seat had been moved. At this moment, he was sitting on Siyu's lap. Even though he saw the contract with his own eyes and his mother signed it as his guardian, he still could not believe it. He felt that he was dreaming. In his previous life, even if he became a top celebrity, he would not be able to sign such a generous contract. At this moment, he was still a 4-year-old kid who had not debuted. The legendary manager in the entertainment industry had become his manager. He was considered an artist of Apple Entertainment. It was Apple Entertainment. Why did it feel so unreal? He lowered his head and looked at the big hand in front of him. He hugged it with his small hand and bit the muscle at the base of his thumb. Then, he looked up and asked foolishly, "Uncle Yu, does it hurt?" "See you." He lowered his head and looked at the circle of teeth marks at the base of his thumb. There was still wet saliva on it. Whose family was this silly child from? Chapter 53. Yuan Axian was very efficient. It didn't take long for him to sign a contract with the production team and join the show as a special guest. He would only be filming for 3 days. A special guest would receive the same treatment as an A-list celebrity. In order for the filming to go smoothly, Yuan Axian required that when one had to team up with Siyu, children would only feel safe around familiar people. This way, they wouldn't have to worry about not being able to continue filming. The production team was also burning their boats. No matter what, this show had to be successful. Director Peng knew that if the show died, his career as a director would come to an end. Therefore, after signing the contract, he wrote the most eye-catching script without stopping. However, the special guest was still too young, so they couldn't ask for more. As long as he could interact with Siyu, the show would be stable. After signing the contract, the production team immediately made an official announcement online. Of course, they said it beautifully. The general idea was that if Fang Shui left the show for some reason, the production team would sincerely invite a special guest and hope that the audience would support them. The world would always be more tolerant of children. It had to be said that the production team played a beautiful hand. Even if Fang Shui's fans were unfriendly to the special guest, the passers-by would still stand on the special guest's side. Moreover, this special guest was so delicate and cute. After all, the production team also explained the reason for inviting the special guest. The celebrity they wanted to invite couldn't find the time. Wen wasn't unknown. He had a group of Papa and Mama fans. In order to invite this special guest, the production team had to persuade his parents to agree. Fu Yun also posted on her social media platform that the special guest was going to be on the show. She hoped that everyone would take care of her. Yun Duo's fans were happy to see this. Yun is so helpless right now. 23333. I guess the production team used a lot of candy to tempt Zai Zai. I just want to say, well done. Ah, my child is going to be on the show. Mama is so proud. My child. Ah. Countless fans jumped around and spread the news under the official announcement of the show on the platform's forum. After confirming that he would be on the show, Wen had been thinking about what kind of persona he should create to attract fans. He wanted a lot of popularity so that his mother could bask in the limelight. What kind of special guest was the most popular? Mischievous. Smart. Cute. Adorable. Wen recalled the adults' attitudes towards children with different personalities and found that most adults liked sensible and smart children from other families. Wen clenched his fists and made a great wish. He wanted to be someone else's child. Early the next morning, when the sky was only slightly bright, the extremely excited Wen woke up Fu Yun. Fu Yun looked at the time. Oh my god, it was only 5:00. Wen jumped up and down on the bed. Mommy, it's time to wake up. Fu Yun roared. She laid on her back on the bed and looked at the bouncing little one. She said helplessly, "Baby, the show starts at 8:30. It's still early." "It's getting late, Mom." Wenwen said seriously, "I still have to do my hair. It'll take a long time." "Yo, you even know how to style." Fu Yun could not help but laugh. "Of course." Wenwen proudly stuck out his little belly. "I'm an adult." "Baby, why are you so cute?" Fu Yun Ruo could not help but carry Wenwen up and rub him. After such a commotion, Fu Yun Ruo also became energetic and got out of bed. Wenwen got off the edge of the bed and put on her little shoes. His little face was flushed red. He thought to himself, "I'm already so big, but my mother is still so childish." But who asked her to be his mother? He could only tolerate it. Sigh. The big and small movements also woke Siyu and Aunt May up. The old house instantly became lively. After washing up, Fu Yun Ruo went to the kitchen to cook breakfast. Wenwen had already run into the room, opened the wardrobe, and rummaged through the clothes to wear today. He changed a few sets, but he always felt that there was nothing new about them. They were not eye-catching and could not show his handsome and cool side. Wenwen's upper body was in the wardrobe, and only his two little feet were dangling outside the wardrobe. He found a cool military green imitation uniform from last summer, and his eyes lit up. He had only worn this uniform a few times, and it was 80% new. At that time, it was still very loose for him. He should be able to wear it this year. Wenwen took out the uniform and quickly changed into it. The length of the clothes was still suitable, but it was a little tight. Wenwen did not grow much taller, but he had grown a lot horizontally. The military green shirt of the same style was a little tight. Wenwen lowered her head and saw the outline of her belly that was very obvious. How could this be? Although he was still young, he still needed to be in shape. Wenwen took a deep breath and tried to shrink his stomach, but it was not very effective. It was still round. "Wenwen, it's time for breakfast." "Coming." Wenwen ran out. Fu Yun Ruo saw Wenwen come out in a new set of clothes and exclaimed in surprise. "Wenwen, why are you wearing this? Last year's clothes obviously did not fit this year." Fu Yun Ruo did not expect that he would still be able to find last year's clothes. People with fair skin wore military green clothes that complemented their skin better. Wenwen looked more exquisite and cute, but it was not suitable to wear out. Wenwen said, "It looks good." Fu Yun Ruo came out with a bowl of meat porridge and placed it on the table to cool. Wenwen is really a spirited child," Aunt May praised. Wenwen said sweetly, "Grandma looks good in this flowery shirt too." "Really?" Aunt May smiled and lowered her head to touch the smooth shirt. "Your mother bought it." Aunt May only gave birth to a son. She did not expect that she would still be able to enjoy the blessing of having a daughter when she was old. "My mother also bought mine." Siyu walked out of the kitchen and glanced at Wenwen. He was full of youthful energy. Fu Yun Ruo did not expect that Wenwen would like this set of clothes so much. He had never shown any special preferences when it came to wearing it. Instead, he liked to wear different styles of clothes. Wenwen smelled the fragrant porridge and secretly swallowed his saliva. He subconsciously touched his small stomach and refused. "Mom, I'm not hungry." Fu Yun Ruo turned his head and looked over. "You don't want to eat breakfast?" "I'm not eating," Wenwen replied crisply. "If you don't eat, you'll be hungry." Fu Yun Ruo carried Wenwen onto a small high stool and stirred the porridge in front of him with a small spoon. The fragrance seemed to be stronger. Wenwen hesitated. He lowered his head and looked at his small stomach that was more obvious when he sat down. If he ate, it would be even more obvious. Fu Yunruo noticed his small movements and knew what he was thinking after thinking about it. The child wanted to save face. He felt that his chubby body was too obvious on the show and wanted to lose weight. Fu Yunruo said gently, Wen, this set of clothes doesn't fit you anymore. Let's change to another set, okay? Don't tell me you want to wear clothes that don't fit you on the show. Wen hesitated. Fu Yunruo said firmly, no matter what Wen wears, he will be the prettiest child in the village. Wen said proudly, of course. He thought about it and agreed. If he wore something that didn't fit him, it would also damage his handsome image. I'll change into another set of clothes later. After being comforted by his mother, Wen also changed his mind. Hence, he held the spoon in his chubby hand and happily ate his breakfast. In the end, Wen changed into a pure white t-shirt and denim pants with suspenders. He even wore an exquisite little straw hat on his head. Then, Fu Yunruo held his hand and accompanied Siyu and Yuan Axayan to the location where the production team would gather. This was Fu Yunruo's request. She did not want her home to appear on camera. The production team had already gathered. When they arrived, they were already busy inside and outside. The production team had set up a few shelters under an old tree at the entrance of the village. The guests were resting and putting on their makeup inside. Yuan Axayan was already talking to Director Peng at the production team. When he saw them coming over, he hurriedly said, Wen, you're here. You're here. A woman wearing a light-colored suit and exquisite makeup walked out of the shelter. When she saw Wen, her eyes lit up. Wen, this is Auntie Xiaoyu. She will be your exclusive makeup artist from now on. Wen looked up at her and called out clearly, Sister Xiaoyu. Pu Xiaoyu was instantly overjoyed. What a cute child. Pu Xiaoyu could not help but hold her face. She had already thought that he was cute in the video. She did not expect him to be even cuter in person. She looked at the woman beside him who looked very similar to the child. When the two of them stood together, she felt that they were a pair of siblings. She had seen many female celebrities who had given birth and spent a lot of effort to recover. However, she was the only one who could recover so well. She was even more envious. Go on, the show is about to start, Yuan Axayan urged. Miss Yu, I'll leave Wen to you. Don't worry, Miss Fu. I'll definitely dress Wen up beautifully. I'm older than you. Just call me Sister Yu. Okay, Sister Yu. You can call me Yunruo too. The two women quickly became closer and then brought the child into the shelter together. Siyu, who did not seem to exist at the side, was speechless. She felt neglected. Siyu asked Yuan Axayan, why did you let her come? Didn't you say that it's just a variety show and that we can use the production team's makeup artist to appear on camera? Yuan Axayan said matter-of-factly, how can the production team's makeup artist compare to our team's personal makeup artist? It's Wen's first time on a show. Naturally, she has to be in her best condition. How can we just let it be? Siyu, who had been the only one on the set without an assistant, was speechless. Siyu felt a little jealous. Could it be that this little brat had caused everyone around him to betray him? You're a man. Why are you jealous of a little kid? Yuan Axayan glared at him unhappily. He wanted to ask what kind of attitude this damn man had. How could he be jealous of his own son? Considering that there were too many people around, Yuan Axayan spoke vaguely. In the shelter, Pu Xiaoyu was putting on Wen's makeup. His skin was fair and rosy, tender and smooth. His little mouth was also rosy. Pu Xiaoyu openly took advantage of him for a long time before saying, you don't have to put on much makeup. Just put on some powder and it'll be fine. Fu Yunruo watched as Pu Xiaoyu gently patted Wenwen's face and applied a light layer of natural color to his little lips. It's done. Fu Yunruo carefully sized him up. He didn't look any different without the makeup, but he seemed to be more spirited and bright. Pu Xiaoyu saw that Fu Yunruo only patted some water on her face and didn't even apply sunscreen. She immediately said, Yunruo, don't you know how to take care of your skin? Ha! Fu Yunruo touched her face. No. In such a remote place, dressing up would make her look strange. She had always been barefaced. What a waste. Pu Xiaoyu lamented. If I had your face, I wouldn't have to do anything. I would just have to take care of this face every day. She pressed Fu Yunruo down on her seat and opened her makeup box to take out a set of skincare products. How can you ruin such a beautiful face? If you don't take care of your skin when you're young, you might not be able to tell the difference when you're young. But when you're older, it'll be obvious. The condition of your skin can't compare to your peers who have taken care of themselves for years. Or is that so? Fu Yunruo kept listening to Pu Xiaoyu talk about the benefits of taking care of one's skin and the serious consequences of not taking care of it. After all, which woman didn't want to be beautiful? If she could make herself beautiful, she wouldn't want to grow old and ugly. Pu Xiaoyu observed her face and felt even more heartache. If she took good care of her skin, it would be even better. Wenwen listened from the side and was very concerned. I'll make sure Mom takes care of her skin in the future. This set of skincare products isn't the most suitable for your skin. I'll recommend another set. Although it's a little expensive, the effects are really good. It's also suitable for your age. Fu Yunruo and Pu Xiaoyu added WX and promised that they would take good care of their skin in the future. Wenwen glanced at the price link sent by Pu Xiaoyu. It was so expensive. He thought to himself that he had to earn more money. After Pu Xiaoyu gave Fu Yunruo some good skincare products, Xiu sat down and did a little makeup. At this moment, the production crew's guests came over to greet Wenwen and Fu Yunruo and express their goodwill. Wang Huaibei was a little embarrassed. He was the first one among the guests who had said something bad to them in person. Only Axan Su was more at ease. Fu Yunruo had a polite smile on her face as she led Wenwen around to exchange pleasantries. After a round of greetings, she felt that her face was about to turn stiff from smiling. Not long after, the production crew was about to start filming. Fu Yunruo said a few words to Wenwen, telling him not to be nervous and to treat it as a game. Then she handed Wenwen over to Xiu and walked away from the camera to stand with the production crew. Wenwen looked at the camera of the live broadcast equipment and felt a sense of nervousness that he hadn't felt in a long time. But after a while, he calmed down and didn't cower. He had seen bigger situations before. As usual, the guests opened the show to liven up the atmosphere and then brought out the special guests. The director and production crew nervously looked at the data dynamics backstage. The moment the show started broadcasting, its peak popularity immediately increased explosively. Even though Feng Shui's fans had clamored to not watch the show and not contribute to the show's traffic during the official announcement yesterday, the current figures were not much different from before the show stopped broadcasting. In fact, there was even a slight trend of increasing. Only when Xiu joined the production team would there be such an explosive increase in viewership. Everyone in the program crew was grinning from ear to ear, unable to contain their joy. This variety show had not been going smoothly from the start. During this period, there had been ups and downs and it had even been stopped broadcasting. But who knew if it was a blessing in disguise? Their show was destined to be a hit. It couldn't be stopped. The villagers' enthusiasm for the production crew was reignited. When they heard that Wenwen was going to film the show, they all followed behind and prepared to see how Wenwen would film the show. The production crew didn't have any requirements for Siyu and Wenwen's team. The mission cards were super simple. They had to ask Wenwen to go to the Dong family's house to borrow rice and vegetables from the Shi family's house. Then, Siyu would cook lunch for the two of them. They didn't expect it to be such a simple task. The audience watched with relish. The popularity of the live broadcast room was still steadily increasing. Wenwen thought about his own character. As a smart and sensible child, he would be considerate of the adults and help them as much as he could. The production crew only gave him a cabbage and asked him to use this cabbage to exchange for a carrot from the Shi family's second uncle, an egg from the Dong family's Grandma Lin, and a pig bone from the village's butcher. How could he use this cabbage to exchange for the requested items? This time, he would have to display his intelligence and wisdom. Wenwen expressed that this was a small matter. He would first use the cabbage to exchange for 4 eggs, then use 1 egg to exchange for 2 carrots, and then use 2 eggs to exchange for a pig bone. Wenwen told Siyu his idea seriously. Siyu expressed that he was really smart. Wenwen tried hard to keep the corners of his lips raised. Yes, I have to be steady. I can't be arrogant. I just have to silently praise myself for being quick-witted. Siyu carried the basket. Wenwen was considerate and wanted to help. However, with his small body, he couldn't carry both sides of the basket. He could only use his small hands to support the bottom of the basket. He was very familiar with the river village. He directly brought Siyu to Grandma Lin's house. When they reached their destination, Wenwen knocked on the door and said cutely, "Grandma Lin, can I use this cabbage to exchange for 3 eggs?" Grandma Lin responded kindly, "Sure, Wenwen, wait." Grandma Lin walked steadily into the house and came out with a basket in a short while. Wenwen carried the cabbage. This cabbage was very heavy and Wenwen had a hard time carrying it. Then, he passed it to Grandma Lin. Grandma Lin took the cabbage and put it aside. Then, she lifted the cloth on the basket, revealing round and delightful eggs. Wenwen carried the basket and looked up at Grandma Lin expectantly. Grandma Lin grabbed the eggs in 2 hands and quickly placed them on Wenwen's basket. In the blink of an eye, there were 1, 2, 3, 4. 12 eggs. These are purebred free-range eggs. Take them back and let your mother stew them for you. They're very fragrant. Wenwen hurriedly refused. "That's enough, Grandma Lin. I only want 3. How can 3 be enough for a glutton like you? Take more. Grandma has a lot at home." Grandma Lin wanted to take more. Wenwen had already placed the basket gently on the ground. Then, he grabbed 1 in each hand and put it back. With a serious face, he said, "Grandma Lin, I'm filming a show. I've calculated that I only need 3. Oh. Grandma Lin remembered and nodded. "I understand, I know. I have to cooperate with you, right? All right, I'll only give you 3. As she spoke, Grandma Lin even blinked. Wenwen nodded. Grandma Lin asked softly, "Wenwen, why did you think of filming a show? Will you be a big star in the future?" "I'm not a star yet." Chiwen puffed up his chubby face and said in a serious voice, "I want to earn money to buy cosmetics and skincare products for Mom." After being reminded by Sister Xiaoyu, Wenwen also thought of this serious problem. He could talk about earning money and saving capital in the future. The most important thing now was to buy skincare products for his mother. She doesn't know how to dress up and maintain her looks. Wenwen expected better from her. He always remembered that more than 20 years later, if that Feng Shui still maintained her looks like a 30-year-old woman, his mother could not lose to her. Of course, even if she did not maintain her looks, his mother would still be the most beautiful woman. If she only maintained her looks, wouldn't she crush her opponent even more? They thought that they were whispering, but in fact, it had already been recorded in the live stream. The audience also heard it and became even more excited. My child, how can he be so cute? This is my child. Sob, sob, sob. Mama is so happy. I'm suffocated by his cuteness. I also want to have a son who will buy cosmetics for me. Please give me a dozen such sons. Thank you. Trying to trick me into having children again. Wenwen's basket was only left with 3 eggs. The first mission was considered completed. He wiped his sweat. It was really not easy. Then, he lifted the basket and showed it to Siyu. I've completed the mission. Siyu gave him a thumbs up. Wenwen, you're awesome. Wenwen almost laughed out loud. Fortunately, she remembered that she had to maintain a stable image. She quickly pursed her lips, but her big eyes curved into crescents. Next, it was time to go to the second place. Wenwen also knew where the second uncle's house was. She led Siyu through the alleys and small paths, then walked to the second uncle's house. He explained the purpose of his visit to the second uncle and especially emphasized that he only wanted 3 carrots. There was a harmless accident just now, but it definitely wouldn't happen this time. The second uncle was originally sitting on the doorstep smoking a pipe. When he saw Wenwen coming over, he smiled and put out the cigarette. You want carrots? Sure, the vegetable garden is over there. You can pluck whichever one you like. Thank you, second uncle. Wenwen gave an egg to the second uncle. Then, she entered the vegetable garden with Siyu and found the carrots. The second uncle's house had already plucked a lot of carrots to eat. The carrot sprouts in the vegetable garden were slightly sparse. Siyu was about to pluck the carrots. Wenwen sensibly said, Uncle Yu, let me pluck them. Wenwen thought that since he was so sensible and considerate, the audience should like him very much, right? Siyu raised his eyebrows, straightened his body, and nodded. Okay. Wenwen looked around carefully and found 3 carrots that were obviously larger. Then, she stood in front of one of the carrots. She grabbed the sprouts with both hands and tried her best to pull them up. An orange-red carrot appeared in midair. Wenwen smiled happily and looked at Siyu. After receiving a look of approval, she excitedly plucked the second one. He plucked. He plucked. Why isn't it moving? Wenwen plucked for a while. She used all her strength and her face turned red. Wenwen suddenly fell upside down. Her small body leaned back and she fell on her butt. Her 2 feet were facing the sky, and her hands were still holding on to the carrot that she had worked so hard to pluck. Chapter 54. Pfft. Wenwen's little eyes were in a daze. He didn't realize what had happened for a long time. It was only when Siyu helped him up that he realized he had fallen. Wenwen's face turned red. He was so embarrassed. Wenwen looked up at Siyu with uncertainty. He seemed to have heard mocking laughter. Did he hear wrongly? Wenwen turned his head to look for Fu Yunruo's position and saw a familiar figure not far away, smiling at him. Siyu looked serious as he gently patted the dust off Wenwen's body. Are you hurt? Wenwen shook his head and explained seriously, it was an accident. I don't usually fall. It was just a small mistake. His image was still very mature. Yes, I believe you. Siyu nodded seriously. Wenwen heaved a sigh of relief. If Uncle Yu believed him, then the audience would believe him too. His image was saved. Which carrot do you want to pull? Let's do it together. Wenwen pointed at the carrot he wanted. He was afraid that he would lose his balance again, so he let Siyu pull it out. Second Uncle Yu walked over with his hands behind his back. When he saw that they had only pulled out 3 carrots, he said, "Pull out a few more. No one will eat them if they are left in the field. They will be old after a long time." As he spoke, he walked to the vegetable field and prepared to pull out more carrots. Wenwen's eyes widened. "Uncle Yu." Siyu placed the 3 carrots neatly and scooped up Wenwen. He strode out with his long legs. "Second Uncle Yu, we have something to do. We'll leave first." Wenwen hung in Siyu's arms with his butt facing forward and his head facing backward. He looked up and waved at Second Uncle Yu. "Second Uncle Yu, I'll come and play with you when I'm free." After leaving Second Uncle Yu's house, they went to the pork shop in the village. Wenwen sat on Siyu's shoulder and said solemnly, "What happened just now was an accident. It won't happen again." "Yes, I believe you." Siyu's voice contained a hint of a smile. After walking for a while, Wenwen said, "Uncle Yu, put me down." He had walked for a long time since the morning and his feet were tired. But as a mature and steady child, he couldn't let the adults get tired, so after a while, he had to get down from the ground and walk on his own. Siyu did not refuse and put Wenwen down. After walking for a while, a few children emerged from the alley. When they saw so many people around Wenwen, they shrank their necks. However, he still mustered up his courage and shouted at Wenwen, "Wenwen, come quickly. Great-grandma will make cold cakes." The adults were worried that the children would disturb the filming of the show, so they repeatedly ordered them not to get close to Wenwen for 3 days. They had to wait for the strangers to leave before they could find Wenwen to play. In order to keep an eye on this group of naughty children, she specially invited the oldest woman in the village, who was 90 years old, to make her best cold cakes, which were the children's favorite. But were they the kind of people who ate alone? The children were kept in the village's great-grandmother's house, so they slipped out under the adults' watchful eyes to find Wenwen and ask him to hurry over. Great-grandma's cold cakes. Wenwen's ears perked up. Great-grandma was a cook in a rich family when she was young. She was good at making pastries, but now that she was older, she rarely made them. Although she was still eye-catching now, she was old after all. In recent years, she would only occasionally make the easiest cold cakes to make. Wenwen was lucky enough to eat 2 pieces last year. He could still remember the taste. No one else could make it that way. Great-grandma's cold cakes. Wenwen swallowed his saliva. His eyes sparkled as he ran happily to his friends. Siyu, who was suddenly forgotten. The children seemed to have forgotten that they were filming a show. The cameraman's assistant was laughing so hard that he almost passed out. The audience in the live broadcast room was also laughing like crazy. Siyu was so pitiful. He was abandoned, ha ha ha. Where did this clown come from? He was so funny. The cameraman chased after him. Wenwen had already mixed with his friends. They squatted in a row outside the great-grandmother's kitchen and anxiously looked inside. Wenwen's heart and eyes were occupied by the cold cakes. Like the other children, he swallowed his saliva from time to time. Wenwen had only eaten it once. Because it was so delicious, when he finished 2 pieces and wanted more, the great-grandmother had already distributed them. He didn't leave a piece for his mother. This was because he had been thinking about it for a long time. This time, he definitely wouldn't eat it alone. He wanted to share it with his mother. The cameraman didn't get too close, and Siyu didn't disturb him. Instead, he chatted with the audience in the live broadcast room. When a hunchbacked old woman walked out of the kitchen, she saw the children at the door and smiled kindly. Great-grandma made a lot this time. Everyone can have 3 pieces. Her granddaughter-in-law was helping in the kitchen. She was old and didn't know if she would have another chance to make pastries in the future. This time, she would make more and let the children eat more. Thank you, Great-Grandma. Great-Grandma has worked hard. The children were so happy that they jumped on the spot, thinking about how to eat. Wen was also thinking. If there were 3 pieces, he and his mother would each have half a piece. Divided 3 times, it would be equivalent to him and his mother eating 3 times. They would eat a lot and feel much better. He was really a quick-witted child. The children waited for half an hour and stood in a row to receive 3 pieces of cold cakes. He was the only one who received the biggest piece of cold cake. Wen was so happy that his eyes couldn't be seen. Then, he ran to Fu Yunruo with the cold cakes. Mom. Delicious cold cakes. Fu Yunruo smiled. Yes, have you thanked Great-Grandma? Yes. Wen took out a piece and stuffed it into Fu Yunruo's mouth. As he stuffed it, he swallowed his saliva. Mom, eat first. It's so delicious. Fu Yunruo didn't refuse to share with her child. She took a small bite. It's so delicious. Wen smiled and said happily, Mom, eat half. I'll eat the other half. Hence, Fu Yunruo took 2 small bites. Okay, Mom has eaten half. Wen looked at the large piece of pastry in his hand. His mother was coaxing him. He continued to hold it up. It's not half. Okay. It wasn't until Wen felt that his mother had eaten half that he leaned against Fu Yunruo and ate in satisfaction. This was the taste. It was too delicious. Wen finished the half piece in his hand and still wanted more. Do you still want to eat? Fu Yunruo asked. No, I'll eat it later, Wen Ruo said reluctantly. Good things should be enjoyed slowly. 3 pleasures were better than 1. Then Mom will keep it for you first. You can continue filming the program. Filming the program. Wen Ruo was thunderstruck. His small body froze. He suddenly remembered that he was filming a program earlier. Wen Ruo turned his head and looked around. He saw Siyu standing not far away. He had his arms crossed and was leaning against a tree trunk while looking at him. His expression seemed to say, let's see when you can remember. Noticing Wen Ruo's gaze, Siyu Ruo walked over with his long legs. Seeing this, Fu Yunruo stepped back to let them continue filming the program. Wen Ruo squatted down and looked down at the bare yellow ground. His small back view was bleak and extremely desolate. What's the matter? Siyu Ruo walked over and squatted down to ask. Wen Ruo's eyes were filled with tears. I want to be a smart and sensible child, but it failed. Wen Ruo thought about how after filming the program, things kept happening. He was very sad. This time, he could not attract any fans. How could he have forgotten about his character setting while doing it? The audience would definitely think that he was a gluttonous, lazy, and playful child. Siyu Ruo patted his head and comforted him. You're already very smart and sensible. 3 or 4-year-old children were at the peak of their energy. It was normal for them to not let go. They came up with ideas. It was normal for a goldfish to lose 3 seconds of memory occasionally. Uncle you don't have to comfort me. I'm very strong. Wen Ruo held back his tears. Uncle Yu was just comforting him. It was okay. It was only the first day. He still had 2 days to redeem his character. Lol, this program is actually called Movie King's Daily Life. Siyu Ruo will definitely be a good father in the future. Ha 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 ha. Isn't this too unfair? We're both children. Why are you so cute? Fu Yunruo looked at the scene and did not forget to enter the live stream to look at the comments on the screen. They were all fancy praises for Zai Zai and other normal comments. There was not a single negative comment. Her eyebrows relaxed. The situation was not as bad as she thought. Fu Yunruo thought of the contract she signed with the program team. When Yuan Axian negotiated with the program team, he had clearly stated the program team's obligations. One of them was that there could not be any negative information about Wen in the live stream or the comments on the program team's official account. After all, the child was still too young. He could not bear the unwarranted abuse and malice at such a young age. Most of the audience were rational. They were mainly wary of Feng Shui Ruo's group of brainless fans. As for the social media platforms outside the program team, Apple Entertainment's public relations department took action, and the marketing accounts all ceased their activities. Regardless of whether it was because of this reason or not, Fu Yunruo would be quite happy if she did not see anyone talking bad about her child. She looked at Wen in the camera. She had to admit that he was born with a good sense for the camera. He really had no blind spots from 365 degrees and was very likable. When Fu Yunruo saw that Wen was having a good time, she could not help but smile. She had never seen how others recorded a program before, but now that she saw it, wasn't it similar to playing? It seemed that the program team was quite humane. Previously, she did not like this program team because of Feng Shui Ruo. She had misunderstood. Her phone vibrated. Fu Yunruo looked down and saw that it was a call from Tian. She looked at Wen, who was talking to Siyu. She walked a little further away and picked up the call. Tian. Ruo, I've found a female bodyguard. Fu Yunruo's eyes lit up. Really? That's great. There's only one, but don't worry. This is a really powerful person. You'll know when you see her. She definitely won't let you down. I'm on my way to your place. We'll meet tomorrow morning. Okay, thank you for your hard work. Fu Yunruo looked at Siyu and could not help but touch her face. The hired bodyguard was coming. Siyu could leave successfully. Wen would not have any objections. But how should she bring it up? No matter how she said it, it felt like she was burning the bridge after crossing it. But the bodyguard would be coming tomorrow. If she stuck her head out, she would also be stabbed. Fu Yunruo decided that she would find an opportunity to talk to Siyu about this at night. The program went smoothly. Although there were many small accidents, the overall situation was very good. Chapter 55. Wen was abnormally excited, chattering non-stop all the way, as if he had endless things to say. Fu Yunruo kept watching. Listening to the person involved was another form of enjoyment. Hearing Meng's voice, her heart also softened. When they reached home, Wen was still following Fu Yunruo around like a little tail. Fu Yunruo gave him some water and then went to the kitchen to cook. Are you hungry? Do you want to eat a piece of cake? In the village, Fu Yunruo was very assured of Wen. She took the time to go home, put the cold cake on a plate, and cooled it with cold water before returning the bowl to the grandmother's house. When Fu Yunruo came to the grandmother's house, she was stuffed with a packet of cake wrapped in oil paper. Because the grandmother was old, the villagers would not disturb her because of this. If the children went, they would not say anything. Moreover, the children were also sensible. They would only swarm over when the grandmother took the initiative to make it. The adults did not have the fortune to eat it. No matter how much they made, the children would not be able to eat it. Fu Yunruo did not expect that she would have more. Fu Yunruo refused for a while but could not refuse. Thinking that Wen liked to eat it so much, she finally accepted it shamelessly. Fu Yunruo had not told Wenwen about this matter yet. Therefore, when Wenwen saw Fu Yunruo take out the plate and saw the 2 pieces of cake on it, she cherished it very much. Then, eat 1 piece first. The last piece was to be eaten before bed. Eating sweet cold cake before bed, she could have a good dream at night. Wenwen broke it into 2 halves and compared it. Then, he gave the big piece to Fu Yunruo. Mom. Fu Yunruo thought that there was still more and that the cold cake could not be kept for long, so she did not refuse. Eat the other piece too. Wenwen was reluctant, but he was hungry. The more he ate, the hungrier he got. Fu Yunruo said casually, "You have to share it with Uncle Yu." She thought that since Yu treated Wenwen so well, it was only right for him to return the favor. However, Wenwen thought that Fu Yun was talking about sharing the piece in his hand. He was very reluctant. It was the last piece, and he had not eaten enough. He rolled his eyes. If he finished it before Uncle Yu came back, wouldn't there be no need to divide it? But Uncle Yu treated him so well, wouldn't he be too stingy if he didn't differentiate? Wenwen thought for a moment. He first broke it in half, then broke the other half in half. After thinking for a while, he broke off a small piece. The pastries on the plate were divided into several pieces of distinct sizes. Wenwen moved the smallest one to the side, and the rest belonged to him and his mother. This piece is for Uncle Yu. He pointed to a small piece on the side. If Fu Yun did not notice, she, who was picking vegetables, responded without raising her head when she heard Wenwen's voice. Siyu, who had just stepped into the house, paused. What did he hear? His gaze shifted to the pastry that Wenwen was pointing at. It was not even the size of a fingernail. When Wenwen saw Siyu, he quickly retracted his hand and said cutely, "Uncle Yu, you're back." Fu Yunruo put the vegetables that she had chosen into the sink, looked up, and walked into the living room. She saw the plate in front of Wenwen. The pastries were crushed piece by piece. Thinking of what he said just now, she could not help but say, "You child, you crushed the pastries so much. How are we going to eat them?" Fu Yunruo took out the pastries wrapped in oil paper from the fridge. "Great-grandmother secretly gave us a packet and left a few pieces for you to eat tomorrow. The rest will be shared tonight." It was summer, and food could not be stored for too long. Otherwise, it would not be fresh. These were enough for Wenwen to satisfy his craving. When Wenwen saw the oil paper packet, her eyes lit up. She jumped down from the stool and ran over. Wow! The temperature of the upper floor of the fridge was not very low. It was only used to preserve freshness. If Fu Yun removed the oil paper from the table for a while, the temperature would return to normal. Wenwen leaned on the table and counted. There were a total of 16 pieces. It was a lot. Wenwen moved the plate in front of her and pointed at the oil paper packet on the table. She said generously, "Uncle Yu, you can eat it. It's delicious. See you." Don't think that he did not know that he only had a small position in Wenwen's heart. He had seen through it. Siyu picked up a piece. Wenwen looked at him with sparkling eyes. "Is it delicious? Is it delicious?" Siyu was surprised. He had eaten countless delicacies since he was young. He did not expect to be able to eat such delicious and unique pastries in this mountainous area. It seemed that this mountainous area was full of hidden talents. Siyu nodded. Not bad. Wenwen looked as if he had been praised and raised his head proudly. Then, he ate the pastries on the plate in small bites. Dinner time was lively. Fu Yun saw that Wenwen's head was nodding like a chick pecking at rice not long after he finished eating. She carried him back to the room to sleep. Lying on the bed, Wen did not seem to be sleepy anymore. He rolled around on the bed. Fu Yun hugged him and took out her phone. Come, Mommy will read to you how the brothers, sisters, uncles, and aunties on the internet praise the baby. Wen stopped rolling and buried himself in Fu Yun's arms like an ostrich. After a while, he quietly revealed his eyes and asked carefully, "Are they all praises? Were they not scolding him?" Actually, it did not matter if he was scolded. He did not care at all. Wen knew that he did not perform well. He had not established his image yet. He was so clumsy. He could accept it. Fu Yun looked at Wen's expression and felt a little heartache. It seemed that Wen cared a lot about what others thought of him. Of course. Mommy took a lot of screenshots. They are all praises for the baby. Mommy will read it to you. Wen was bashful for a while. Then, he shifted his small body and leaned his head on Fu Yun's shoulder. He mustered his courage to look at the screen. Mommy took a lot of screenshots. Look, they are so dense that I can't see them clearly. Let's watch them together after the live broadcast is uploaded online. Then, Fu Yun read it to Wen and pointed it out to him. This comment. Zai is really smart, innocent, lively, and cute. Zai is a baby. And these. Many people want babies like Bao Bao. Fu Yun read a lot of comments. Then, she said, the baby hasn't started school yet. There are many words that he can't recognize. When the baby starts school, he will understand everyone's love for you. Wen's eyes stared at the phone screen. He did not say that he could understand it. He could not read all the comments, but he could see that they were all praises. There were even fewer comments about CU than there were about him. The straightforward and unreserved love seemed to pass through the screen and surround him. His heart felt warm. How nice. Wen's eyes were moist. Tears flowed out of the corners of his eyes. However, he was careful not to let Fu Yun see it. After a while, he said coquettishly, "Mommy, read it to me again." Okay. Fu Yun kept reading the comments. Her shoulders were heavy. She looked down and saw that Wen had fallen asleep leaning on her. His small hands were grabbing her clothes. He was very attached to her. His little chubby face was red and the corners of his lips were curled up. It was as if he was having a beautiful dream. Fu Yun kissed his forehead. Good night, baby. Fu Yun waited for Wen to fall asleep before she carefully got up and walked out of the room. It was not even 10 o'clock yet. Siyu was still awake. Fu Yun walked out and saw Siyu sitting in the courtyard. He was typing on his phone with his head lowered. When he saw Fu Yun coming out, he put away his phone and lowered his voice. Are you asleep? Fu Yun nodded. She moved a chair and sat not far away from Siyu. She thought about what she wanted to say, but she found it hard to say it. Siyu saw that she was hesitating and took the initiative to ask, "What's the matter?" Fu Yun said hesitantly, "It's like this. Tian helped me find a female bodyguard. She said that she will be here tomorrow." Siyu nodded and said understandingly, "I will move out when the time comes. It's not very convenient for me to be here. But we have to wait until you see that there is no problem with the bodyguard." Fu Yun saw that he was so straightforward and did not seem to have any grudges. She heaved a sigh of relief. Okay. After we meet tomorrow, thank you for taking care of Wen these days. It's my pleasure. Then I won't disturb you. After chatting for a while, Fu Yun stood up and said goodbye. Siyu replied, "Good night." Good night. You should rest early too. Fu Yun put down her worries and went to sleep without any burden. She had a good night's sleep. On the second day of filming, Wen seemed to have some experience and was more relaxed than yesterday. The production team looked at the high popularity and could not stop smiling. They had finally made the right move for once. At around 3:00 in the afternoon, Tian and the female bodyguard arrived. After Fu Yun asked Yuan Axan to watch over them, she went to receive the guests. Fu Yun looked at Tian and a baby-faced girl who was about 1.6 meters tall with short hair. Countless questions popped up in her heart. This was a female bodyguard. If she walked out and said that she was a minor who had just entered high school, people would believe her. Tian said, "Don't think that Xingnan is young just because she looks like this. You can't judge a book by its cover. She's 2 years older than you. And she's very impressive." Xingnan patted her flat chest and said cheerfully, "Boss, it's right to have your concerns. Because of my face, many employers don't believe me. But please give me a chance to show off." She glanced around and picked up a stone by the flower bed not far away. Then, she ran forward and leaped into the air. She spun around and kicked the stone that had fallen into the air with precision. The extremely hard stone shattered into a few pieces and fell to the ground, scattering in all directions. Fu Yun was stunned. Her first thought was that there were martial arts experts in this world. Xingnan glanced at the eaves and picked up a thick piece of firewood. It seemed that she wanted to continue showing off. Fu Yun quickly stopped her. "No need. It's fine, it's fine." She couldn't help but look down at her feet. She hissed. Didn't it hurt to break such a hard stone? She was full of admiration. At this moment, she looked at Xingnan with great respect. "Boss, you believe me?" Xingnan asked happily. "You don't have to call me boss." Fu Yun waved her hand. Xingnan was instantly disappointed. "Just call me Ruoro or Yunruo." Xianxingnan's eyes lit up. "You've agreed to hire me." Fu Yun nodded and smiled. "Please take care of me in the future. I'll work hard." Xingnan was overjoyed. Because her face made people feel insecure, her work had not been smooth. She didn't expect to succeed this time. The group went to the living room. Fu Yun told her about the benefits, but no matter what she said, Xingnan nodded. This pure and harmless appearance made Fu Yun selectively forget about her martial prowess. Fu Yun thought to herself that such a simple-minded child would be bullied to death by an unscrupulous client. "You can stay by my side in the name of my assistant. Don't worry, the studio will give you an additional salary as an assistant." After all, this was a small place. If she explained to others that she was a bodyguard, others would think that she was a weirdo. It was much more convenient to have the identity of an assistant. When Xingnan heard that, she actually had a double salary. She shook her head repeatedly. The treatment just now was already very good. It's enough. Her salary was paid by the studio. Her salary was already comparable to every job she had done before. There were also all kinds of insurance benefits. It was already very good. Fu Yun said, "You naturally have to receive double salary for doing 2 jobs. It just so happens that I also need an assistant. With you around, I don't have to look for one anymore." Just as Fu Yun finished speaking, she thought of something important. Then, she asked worriedly, "By the way, it can't be that every plant you raise will die, right?" In the past, she thought that there might not be 1 in 10,000 people who would die. But now, she had already met 2 people. What if there was another one? Xingnan tilted her head. Although she didn't understand, she still said honestly, "I used to plant vegetables. They grew very well. When I was young, I participated in Arbor Day in school. The trees that I planted all came alive and were very lush. When Fu Yun heard that, she was relieved. If she could plant vegetables and trees, then she wouldn't be a plant killer. Chapter 56. There was still an empty room in the old house. The three of them cleaned it up together and quickly cleaned it up. In the morning, as a precaution, Fu Yun asked the villagers in town to help bring back 2 sets of mattresses and quilts. When they came back in the afternoon, they took advantage of Wenwen's afternoon nap to unpack and wash them. They could use them at night. Fu Yun considered that they were tired from the journey and wanted to let them rest at home, but they said that they were not tired. Tian knew that Wenwen was filming a show and couldn't wait. I haven't seen the little cutie in a long time. In the end, Fu Yun brought the 2 of them to the scene. On the way, they met a villager and saw 2 young and beautiful girls. He even asked Fu Yun curiously, Ruo, who are these 2? They're my friends. They came here specially to see me. Fu Yun and the others greeted them along the way, then found the production crew and watched from afar. Fu Yun looked at Wenwen for a while. They were playing in the river in the village openly. The children were so happy that they were giggling like little ducks. She introduced Yuan Axayan and the 2 of them to each other. Tian had heard a little about Yuan Axayan and originally respected him as a senior. However, because of Wenwen, the 2 of them felt like old friends at first sight and had a lot in common. They quickly improved their friendship and flattered Wenwen together. Qian Xingnan looked around warily. Fu Yun saw this and told her to relax. We're very safe in the village. We won't encounter any accidents. Actually, she found bodyguards to reassure herself and Wenwen. They wouldn't encounter any danger in the village. No one would be so crazy. Moreover, that group of people only stayed in town for 2 days. They heard that there was an accident in one of the Fu Corporation's projects and he needed to personally deal with it, so they left in a hurry. News spread quickly in the town. They had only left for less than 10 minutes when this matter reached Fu Yun's ears. When she heard the news, she heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, she could have some peace for a while, so she didn't have to worry about them coming again. Qian Xingnan nodded and seemed to relax, but her eyes swept around from time to time. After the intermission, Wenwen ran over. There were still water droplets or sweat on his face. Fu Yun wiped them off for him. Wenwen remembered her mother's business partner and called out sweetly, Sister Tian. She replied with a sweet smile, Hello, Wenwen. When Wenwen looked at the other beautiful big sister who had never seen the big boss before, her eyes were filled with confusion. Fu Yun introduced her to him. This is Sister Qian Xingnan. Then she said in a low voice, She's also our family's bodyguard. She's amazing. Wenwen's eyes darted around. After sizing her up for a while, she cutely called her sister Xingnan. Qian Xingnan was at a loss when she saw such a cute and clever child. She responded with a stiff expression. Yuan Axian took out a cute sky blue water bottle. Come, Wenwen, have some water. A few adults surrounded Wenwen and completely ignored Siyu, who was walking over. Fu Yun inadvertently saw this and felt that with his status, he would be the center of attention wherever he went. At this moment, he was being ignored because of Wenwen. She felt quite embarrassed. Thus, she poured him a glass of water and handed him a packet of tissue to wipe his sweat. Then she especially softly explained Qian Xingnan's identity to Siyu. Siyu's expression was normal as he nodded to show that he understood. At night, the house was lively. Aunt May and Uncle May knew that Fu Yun would have guests over, so they specially slaughtered chickens and ducks. When Fu Yun returned in the evening, they cooked a sumptuous dinner together. Even Yuan Xian had dinner at the Fu family's house before leaving. Siyu packed his luggage and prepared to move to the Mei residence. Aunt Mei knew about Qian Xingnan's other identity and also knew that Siyu wouldn't be staying here anymore. Thus, she also packed her things and prepared to move home. Tian had just found out that Siyu was staying here and was shocked for a long time. She looked at Fu Yun and hesitated to speak. In the end, she couldn't hold it in and pulled Fu Yun out to have a private talk. "Why is Mr. Siyu staying at your house?" Fu Yun Ruo told Tian everything that had happened. Tian couldn't help but say, "Ruo, I don't want to nag at you, but you're really too careless. Aren't you afraid that he has ulterior motives?" Fu Yun laughed and said, "I know what you mean, but that's impossible. He's only fooling around on account of Wen. Moreover, Aunt Mei is also here." It wasn't that Fu Yun belittled herself. He was a famous and influential superstar with many beautiful women around him. Why would he fancy a woman who had a child out of wedlock? Moreover, she didn't feel that he was wooing her. She wasn't that slow, right? It was because Wen was loved by everyone that she indulged him in fooling around. "You're so outstanding. Those who dare to despise you are not worthy of you." Although that was what she said, it was undeniable that Siyu was more outstanding. There were many talented and beautiful women around him. No matter how good Fu Yun was, the fact that she had a child out of wedlock was enough to make many people hesitate and be prejudiced. But everyone in the entertainment industry knows that Mr. Siyu pays attention to his interactions with the opposite sex outside of acting. He doesn't have any ambiguous relationships. Gintian's knowledge of Siyu was based on hearsay. However, he was indeed one of the few male celebrities in the industry who had a clean private life. This was the first time Tian knew that Siyu would take the initiative to stay under the same roof with a young and beautiful woman. She couldn't help but think about it. Wasn't Ruoro confused by the situation? Fu Yun was also suspicious after hearing Tian's words. Could it be that Siyu was really interested in her? But it didn't seem like it. She really didn't feel that he was wooing her. Or was his wooing so reserved? With this question in mind, Fu Yun and Tian returned to the courtyard. Wen was talking to Siyu reluctantly. Wen couldn't bear to part with Siyu, but it was written in the agreement that she could only reluctantly send him off. Fu Yun saw that Siyu left so decisively and the suspicion that had just arisen dissipated. If Siyu really liked her, shouldn't he be thinking of ways to make her stay? As expected, Tian was thinking too much. She was thinking, how could Mr. Yu like her? She was still thinking that if it was really her, how could she reject him without hurting him so much? She almost caused a misunderstanding. At night, Fu Yun read the comments on the bullet screen to Wen as usual to coax him to sleep. Suddenly, she realized that on the screen, there were many comments saying that Wen and Siyu looked alike. They were simply replicas of Siyu. They were just like little Siyu. Fu Yun had taken the screenshots casually today and didn't pay attention to the comments on the screen. Now that she noticed them, she suddenly felt as if she could see them everywhere. Fu Yun thought to herself, how did Wen look like Siyu? They were clearly replicas of her. Siyu had nothing to do with Wen. How could they look alike? Wen also saw such comments. He saw more than one person saying that he was little Siyu. He felt very nervous and uneasy. Could it be that he had unknowingly brought over the habits that he had learned in his previous life? In his previous life, to train his acting skills, he had looked for Siyu's movies and TV shows to imitate. Later on, to become famous, he had used the title of Little Siyu to become popular. He always knew that Siyu's fans didn't like people trying to ride on Siyu's popularity. The haters also used this to mock him. He looked at the comments nervously. In this life, he didn't want to ride on his popularity, but the audience was saying that he was a child's version of Siyu. Was it little Siyu? Wen felt very uncomfortable when he thought that the audience who had been so friendly to him might change their attitude. He saw that his mother was in a daze and didn't move for a long time. He took the initiative to swipe the screen. He thought that he would be mocked and scolded, but along the way, other than those who expressed their love for him and discussed the program, many people agreed with the title, Little Siyu. Many people even used Little Siyu to make fun of him. He saw that the netizens' attitudes were completely different from his previous life. Wen started to doubt his life. Could it be that all the negative comments had been removed? Or did his mother only take screenshots of the positive comments? Fu Yunruo was affected by Tiantian's words and felt a little embarrassed when she saw such comments. Children naturally liked to imitate adults. Siyu was one of the adults that Wen liked, so it was normal for her to unconsciously imitate his words and actions. Was that why the audience felt that they were similar? She continued to read the comments as if nothing had happened. Anyway, Wen didn't know many words, so she wouldn't know if she skipped them. Feng Shuiruo sat in front of the computer and watched the live broadcast turn off. The screen darkened, and her eyes flickered. She went to the comments on the internet and saw that Fu Yunruo and her son's reputation had spread far and wide. Their fans had skyrocketed, and her fingers were pinched so hard that a few red marks appeared on them. She called her manager. Sister Wen, do you have any work to do recently? I'm a little bored at home, so I can take a walk. Sister Wen's eyelids twitched. She braced herself and said, there's a cosmetics company that wants you to endorse. Which company? Feng Shuiruo said casually. This was an internationally renowned cosmetics brand. Previously, her studio had contacted the person in charge of the Asian region, and the other party obviously had the same intention. No, it's Oi. Crack. Feng Shuiruo broke a bamboo stick. What did you say? Sister Wen heard her cold voice and shuddered, but she still said, it's Oi. There was only a difference of one letter, but the difference between the two was like heaven and earth. Oi was a brand in the country, but it wasn't even considered a well-known brand. There was even a nasty incident where the use of its cosmetics caused disfigurement, and it was ordered to stop business. After that, it was rectified and reopened, but it was no longer trusted by the consumers in the market. How could such a nameless brand with a ruined reputation have the guts to ask her to endorse it? Feng Shuiruo said coldly, Sister Wen, I asked you to be my manager because I trusted your ability. In the end, you can only find me such lousy endorsements? Sister Wen was miserable. Ever since Feng Shui's reputation collapsed, her days of flaunting her fame were over. Her artist was rejected by all the major brands, and those who cared about reputation were not willing to work with an artist who had a tainted reputation. Even if she had the face of Orange Entertainment, the Chang family, and the Fu family, it was useless. Which brand would take this risk? Unless she endorsed the brands under the Fu family and the Chang family, she could only get such lousy endorsements. She was afraid that these days would only come to an end after this storm completely passed. But Sister Wen didn't dare to say anything. She lowered her voice and said, I'll look again. Sister Wen hung up the phone, her face dark. Where was she going to find good resources? In the past, she didn't need to look for resources. Good resources were automatically sent to her door for her to choose. Now, not only were they rejected for endorsements and advertisements, but they were also rejected for good film and television series. Those who approached Feng Shuiruo were third-rate film crews. They wanted to ride on Feng Shuiruo's fame, even if they were blacklisted. If this continued for a long time, feng shui ruo would be completely forgotten. Outdated artists in the entertainment industry were forgotten very quickly. Unless Orange Entertainment was tailor-made for her, you're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.